Have you ever felt like other customers were watching you during a late-night shopping trip? Every night, thousands of 24-hour Walmarts across America don't just serve customers who come to shop. These stories were recorded by security cameras, witnessed by employees, and documented in police reports. The 11 true events I'm going to tell you tonight will make you never look at late night shopping the same way again. Welcome back to Crime Stories for Sleep, where every nightmare is real and every story is verified. Before we dive into America's darkest retail corners, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Trust me, after tonight's stories, you'll want to know about every disturbing incident we uncover. If these stories give you chills, hit that like button to help other viewers discover these verified accounts of retail terror. Tonight, we're exploring the shadowy world of 24-hour Walmart stores, where fluorescent lights buzz overhead and security. Cameras capture more than just shoplifting incidents. These massive retail environments become something entirely different when darkness falls and normal customers give way to something far more sinister. Our first story takes us to Jacksonville, Florida, where 28-year-old nurse Amanda Richardson learned that sometimes the person following you isn't looking to steal merchandise. They're hunting something far more valuable. Amanda worked the night shift at Jacksonville Memorial Hospital and had developed a routine of stopping at the Walmart on Phillips Highway after her shift ended at 7 a.m. The store was usually quiet during those early morning hours, populated mostly by overnight workers like herself and the occasional early riser getting a head start on their day. On Tuesday, March 15, 2021, Amanda entered the store feeling the familiar exhaustion that came after a particularly difficult shift. She had lost 2 patients that night, and the emotional weight of those losses made her shopping trip feel like she was moving through thick fog. She grabbed a cart and began her usual route through the store, starting with the pharmacy section to pick up a prescription before moving on to groceries. It was in the health and beauty section that Amanda first noticed him. A man in his 40s, wearing a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes and a dark jacket that seemed too heavy for the Florida weather. He was standing near the vitamin display, apparently reading labels, but something about his posture suggested he wasn't really focused on the products. When Amanda moved to the next aisle, she caught a glimpse of him in her peripheral vision, moving in the same direction. At first, Amanda dismissed the coincidence. Large stores have natural traffic patterns, and it made sense that 2 shoppers might follow similar routes. But as she continued through the store, the feeling of being followed intensified. Every time she stopped to examine a product, she would sense movement nearby. Every time she changed direction, footsteps seemed to echo her own. Amanda decided to test her suspicions by taking an unusual detour through the automotive section, an area she never visited during her regular shopping trips. Sure enough, within moments she heard the distinctive squeak of cartwheels following the same path. Her heart rate began to increase as she used the reflective surface of a car care display to observe behind her. What she saw made her blood run cold. The man in the baseball cap was standing approximately 20 feet behind her, pretending to examine motor oil, but his head was positioned to watch her reflection in the same surface she was using to observe him. The realization that this person was deliberately mirroring her movements sent a wave of panic through Amanda's exhausted system. Amanda quickly moved toward the electronics section, hoping to find a store employee who could help or at least provide the security of another person's presence. As she approached the electronics counter, she discovered it was unstaffed, typical for the early morning hours. Her panic began to escalate as she realized how isolated she was. Despite being in a public space, the man's behavior became more brazen as Amanda's anxiety increased. He maintained the same distance, always staying just far enough away to avoid direct confrontation, but close enough to keep her in sight. His movements had an eerie quality. He seemed to anticipate her direction changes before she made them. as if he had been studying her shopping patterns for longer than just this morning. When Amanda reached the main checkout area, she found a single cashier working the self-checkout stations. Relief flooded through her as she approached the young employee, a girl who couldn't have been more than 19, whose name tag identified her as Jessica. "Excuse me," Amanda said, trying to keep her voice steady. "There's a man who's been following me through the store. I'm concerned about my safety." Jessica immediately called for security over the store's internal communication system while positioning herself to observe the store floor. Within minutes, security guard Robert Martinez arrived, a middle-aged man who listened carefully as Amanda described her experience and pointed out the man who had been stalking her. What happened next was perhaps the most disturbing part of the entire experience. The moment the security guard came within conversational distance of the man in the baseball cap, the stalker immediately abandoned his cart and walked quickly toward the nearest exit. He didn't run, which would have drawn attention, but moved with purposeful speed that suggested he had planned for the possibility of being confronted. Martinez followed at a distance and watched as the man exited the store and disappeared into the parking lot. He returned to report that the individual had left the premises, but not before Martinez had managed to observe something deeply troubling. The man had been carrying no merchandise and had abandoned a shopping cart that contained only a single item, a box of zip ties. The security investigation revealed additional disturbing details. When Martinez reviewed the store's security camera footage, he discovered that Amanda's stalker had been in the store for over 2 hours before Amanda had arrived. The cameras showed the person walking through various sections of the store, but not shopping in any meaningful way. Instead, he appeared to be studying the layout, customer traffic patterns, and sight lines throughout the building. Most unsettling of all, the security footage showed that when Amanda had entered the store, the man had immediately abandoned his previous activity and begun following her. This suggested that Amanda had been specifically targeted, either because the person had been waiting for her specifically, or because she fit some particular profile that the stalker was looking for. The incident was reported to the Jacksonville Police Department, and Amanda provided a detailed statement about her experience. However, since no actual crime had been committed, following someone in a public place is not illegal. There was limited action the police could take. They advised Amanda to be aware of her surroundings, vary her shopping routine, and report any further incidents immediately. Detective Sarah Coleman, who took Amanda's statement, revealed something that made the incident even more disturbing. This wasn't the first report they had received about suspicious behavior at that particular Walmart location. Over the past 6 months, 3 other women had reported being followed through the store by men matching similar descriptions. Reports described individuals who seemed to be studying their targets rather than engaging in typical stalking behavior. For weeks after the incident, Amanda found herself unable to shop alone without experiencing anxiety. She began bringing friends or family members with her for necessary trips, and she completely avoided early morning shopping. The experience had fundamentally changed her relationship with a space that had previously felt safe and routine. Most disturbing aspect of the entire experience, Amanda later reflected, was the level of sophistication and patience her stalker had demonstrated. This wasn't impulsive or random behavior. It was calculated, planned, and executed with an understanding of store layouts, security blind spots, and human psychology. Amanda never saw her specific stalker again, but the incident left her with profound questions about how many other people might be engaging in similar behavior without being detected, and how many other shoppers might be experiencing the same terror she had felt that morning without having the courage or opportunity to report it to security. Our second story comes from Phoenix, Arizona, where overnight stalker Michael Chun discovered that some customers aren't shopping for groceries. They're shopping for something much more personal and disturbing. Michael had been working the overnight shift at the Walmart Supercenter on Bell Road for 2 years. He preferred the quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., when the store was closed to customers and he could focus on restocking shelves without the chaos of daytime retail. The work was methodical and peaceful, allowing him to listen to podcasts while organizing merchandise and maintaining the store's appearance. It was during the third week of September 2022 when Michael first noticed the unusual customer. The store's policy allowed overnight shopping for emergencies, and security would occasionally admit customers who needed urgent items like baby formula or medication. But this particular customer's behavior immediately struck Michael as odd. The man appeared to be in his 50s, well-dressed in business casual attire that seemed inappropriately formal for a middle-of-the-night shopping trip. He moved through the store with purposeful precision, but he wasn't shopping in any conventional sense. Instead, he seemed to be collecting very specific items in very small quantities. Michael observed the man over several nights, always arriving around 2 a.m. and following the same routine. He would select a single item from the women's clothing section, always something intimate like underwear or sleepwear. Then he would move to the pharmacy area and choose one item from the feminine hygiene products. His final stop was always the jewelry section, where he would examine pieces for several minutes before selecting something small and inexpensive. What made this behavior particularly disturbing was the man's method of selection. He didn't browse like a normal customer. Instead, he seemed to know exactly what he was looking for, heading directly to specific items as if he was shopping from a predetermined list. He would hold each item for an extended period, sometimes bringing it close to his face as if he was smelling it, before placing it carefully in his cart. Michael reported his observations to overnight manager Sarah Kim, who initially dismissed the behavior as eccentric but harmless. However, when Michael mentioned that the same customer had been returning night after night for over a week, always purchasing the same types of items, Sarah decided to review the security footage and investigate further. The investigation revealed a pattern that was both disturbing and puzzling. The customer, who paid with cash and provided no identification, had been making identical purchases for over a month. Each night, he would buy one intimate item, one feminine hygiene product, and one piece of inexpensive jewelry. The total cost was always under $20, and he always paid with exact change. Security footage showed that the man's behavior in the store was ritualistic and methodical. He would spend exactly 45 minutes in the store each night, following the same route and examining the same types of products. He never spoke to employees unless necessary for checkout, and he never showed any interest in any other merchandise. The most disturbing discovery came when Sarah traced the man's visits back through several weeks of security footage. She found that his selection criteria seemed to be based on size and style preferences that suggested he was shopping for a specific person. The clothing items were all the same size, the jewelry pieces were all similar in style, and the overall pattern suggested someone who was intimately familiar with another person's preferences and measurements. Sarah contacted the Phoenix Police Department to report the suspicious behavior, and Detective Maria Rodriguez was assigned to investigate. Rodriguez's experience with stalking cases immediately raised red flags about the customer's behavior pattern. The systematic collection of intimate items suggested someone who was either preparing for an assault or who was engaged in some form of surrogate relationship with an unwilling victim. The investigation led to a disturbing discovery about the customer's identity and motivations. Through license plate recognition and credit card records from his rare non-cash purchases, police identified the man as David Winters, a 52-year-old software engineer who lived alone in a suburban Phoenix neighborhood. A search warrant for his home revealed the horrifying truth about his midnight shopping trips. Winters' house contained dozens of mannequins dressed in the exact clothing items he had been purchasing from Walmart. Each mannequin was positioned to represent a different woman, complete with wigs, jewelry, and personal items that Winters had been collecting. The mannequins were arranged throughout his house like a bizarre domestic scene, with some positioned in his living room, as if watching television, others in his dining room, as if sharing meals, and one in his bedroom positioned as if sleeping beside him. Further investigation revealed that Winters had been engaged in elaborate fantasies involving the mannequins, treating them as surrogate companions and rotating the clothing and jewelry to create the illusion of different personalities and relationships. The items purchased from Walmart were part of a larger collection that included clothing stolen from laundromats, jewelry taken from gym lockers, and personal items obtained through various means. The psychological evaluation of Winters revealed deep-seated issues with social interaction and romantic relationships. He had never been married, had no close friends, and had been living in increasingly elaborate fantasies for years. The midnight shopping trips to Walmart were part of a ritual that allowed him to maintain his delusions while acquiring new props for his imaginary relationships. Winters was charged with theft and stalking, though the charges were relatively minor given that most of his behavior had been technically legal. The discovery of stolen items led to additional charges, but the psychological aspects of his case made prosecution complex. He was ultimately sentenced to psychological treatment and probation, with restrictions on his shopping activities and requirements for ongoing mental health supervision. Michael Chun requested a transfer to the day shift after learning the full extent of Winters' activities. The knowledge that he had been unknowingly facilitating someone's disturbing fantasies for weeks left him feeling violated and concerned about his safety. He never worked overnight retail again, finding the solitary nature of the work too unsettling. After his experience, the incident led to changes in Walmart's overnight customer policies, with additional screening procedures for late-night shoppers and enhanced training for employees to recognize suspicious behavior patterns. However, the case highlighted the difficulty of identifying and preventing behavior that was technically legal but deeply disturbing. Denver, Colorado's 24-hour Walmart on Colorado Boulevard became the hunting ground for something that challenged everything. Security guard Patricia Williams thought she knew about human behavior and the nature of consciousness itself. Patricia had been working security at the store for 5 years, and she prided herself on her ability to read people. Former military police, she had developed instincts about suspicious behavior that served her well in the retail environment. She could spot shoplifters, identify potential troublemakers, and de-escalate conflicts with the kind of professional competence that made her valuable to store management. It was during her shift on November 8, 2023, when Patricia encountered something that would challenge every assumption she had about human behavior. Around 1:30 a.m., she noticed a woman in her 30s wandering through the store in a way that immediately caught her attention. The woman, later identified as Jennifer Walsh, was moving through the aisles with a confused, disoriented manner that suggested she might be under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Patricia approached Jennifer to offer assistance, expecting to find someone who needed medical attention or help finding her way. But the conversation that followed was unlike anything in Patricia's 5 years of security experience. Jennifer appeared to be completely lucid and coherent, but she claimed to have no memory of how she had gotten to the store or why she was there. She insisted that the last thing she remembered was going to bed in her apartment across town, and she was genuinely confused about finding herself in a Walmart in the middle of the night wearing clothes she didn't remember putting on. Patricia's initial assumption was that Jennifer was experiencing some form of medical emergency, perhaps a stroke or seizure that had affected her memory. She called for paramedics while keeping Jennifer calm and comfortable. But as they waited for medical assistance, Patricia noticed details about Jennifer's condition that didn't match typical medical emergencies. Jennifer's confusion was specific and selective. She remembered her name, her address, and general facts about her life, but she had no recollection of the past several hours. She remembered having dinner at home around 6 p.m., but nothing after that until finding herself in the Walmart. Most puzzling of all, she was carrying a shopping list written in her own handwriting for items she claimed she didn't need and had no intention of buying. The shopping list was extensive and specific, including items from various sections of the store: electronics, clothing, household goods, and pharmacy items. But when Patricia asked Jennifer about the items on the list, she showed no recognition of why she would need them or what she planned to do with them. Paramedics arrived and conducted a thorough evaluation of Jennifer's condition. Her vital signs were normal. She showed no signs of intoxication or drug use, and neurological tests revealed no indication of stroke or other medical emergencies. However, her memory loss remained complete for the missing hours, and she continued to express confusion about how she had ended up at the store. While paramedics were evaluating Jennifer, Patricia conducted her own investigation, reviewing security footage to understand how Jennifer had arrived at the store. What she found on the cameras was deeply disturbing and completely inexplicable. The footage showed Jennifer entering the store at 12:45 a.m., but her behavior was unlike anything Patricia had seen before. Jennifer moved through the store with robotic precision, heading directly to specific locations without browsing or comparison. Shopping. She selected items from her list with mechanical efficiency, never hesitating or reconsidering her choices. Most disturbing of all, Jennifer's facial expression throughout the shopping trip was completely blank. She showed no emotion, no awareness of her surroundings, and no response to other customers or employees who passed nearby. She moved like someone who was sleepwalking, but with a purpose and precision that suggested conscious control. The security footage revealed that Jennifer had been in the store for nearly an hour before Patricia had encountered her. During that time, she had visited every section mentioned on her shopping list, but she hadn't purchased anything. Instead, she had placed items in her cart, examined them carefully, then returned them to the shelves. It was as if she was conducting some kind of inventory or assessment rather than actual shopping. Patricia's investigation led to an even more disturbing discovery. Jennifer wasn't the first customer to exhibit this type of behavior at the store. Over the past 3 months, overnight staff had reported 6 similar incidents involving customers who appeared to be shopping in a trance-like state, selecting specific items according to detailed lists, but never completing their purchases. Detective Robert Chun from the Denver Police Department was called in to investigate what appeared to be a pattern of unusual behavior. His research revealed that all 7 affected individuals lived alone, worked night shifts, and had recently experienced stressful life events that might have made them vulnerable to psychological manipulation. The investigation took an unexpected turn when detectives discovered that all 7 individuals had received targeted advertisements in the weeks before their incidents. The ads, delivered through various channels including mail, email, and social media, promoted a new type of sleep aid that promised to improve both sleep quality and memory function. Further investigation revealed that the sleep aid being advertised didn't exist. The company mentioned in the advertisements was fictitious, and the contact information led to disconnected phone numbers and fake addresses. However, several of the affected individuals reported receiving free samples of the supposed sleep aid, delivered to their homes by courier services that had no record of the deliveries. Dr. Elizabeth Martinez, a neurologist consulted by police, examined the symptoms reported by the affected individuals and found them consistent with exposure to certain pharmaceutical compounds that could induce temporary amnesia while leaving subjects susceptible to external direction. The combination of memory loss and heightened suggestibility could explain the robotic shopping behavior captured on security cameras. The investigation revealed a disturbing pattern that extended beyond the Denver store. Similar incidents had been reported at 24-hour retail locations in 12 other cities, always involving individuals who fit the same psychological profile and who had received the same types of targeted advertisements for non-existent sleep. AIDS, federal authorities were contacted when the pattern suggested a coordinated effort involving multiple states. The FBI launched an investigation into what appeared to be a large-scale experimental program using unwitting subjects to test behavioral modification techniques in retail environments. The investigation revealed connections to several pharmaceutical companies and research institutions that were developing experimental treatments for various psychological conditions. However, the companies involved claimed no knowledge of the unauthorized testing, and the trail of evidence led to shell corporations and fake research facilities that disappeared as soon as investigators began asking questions. Jennifer and the cover. Other affected individuals underwent extensive medical and psychological evaluation, but most showed no lasting effects from their experiences. However, several reported ongoing anxiety about their memory and decision-making abilities, and most avoided shopping alone for months after their incidents. The case remains officially unsolved, though federal investigators believe they disrupted a larger experimental program that was using retail environments to test unauthorized pharmaceutical compounds on unwitting subjects. The sophisticated nature of the operation and its ability to target specific individuals based on psychological profiles suggested involvement by organizations with significant resources and advanced technological capabilities. Patricia Williams transferred to day shift security after the investigation concluded, finding that the knowledge of coordinated psychological manipulation in her workplace made overnight duties too unsettling. She continued to work in retail security, but with a new awareness of the potential for ordinary commercial spaces to be used for purposes far removed from legitimate business. Our fourth story takes us to the outskirts of Detroit, Michigan, where night manager Sandra Lopez discovered that sometimes the most dangerous criminals are the ones who look like they belong. The Walmart Supercenter on 8 Mile Road operated with a skeleton crew during overnight hours, typically just 4 employees covering the entire 180,000 square foot facility. Sandra had been managing these overnight operations for 3 years, and she prided herself on maintaining efficiency and security with minimal staff. The team consisted of 2 stockers, 1 cashier, and Sandra herself, who handled everything from inventory management to customer service during the quiet hours between midnight and 6 a.m. On Friday, October 13, 2023, Sandra's routine was disrupted by the arrival of what appeared to be a new employee. The man introduced himself as David Thompson, claiming to be a temporary worker sent by corporate to help with a special inventory project. He presented what looked like legitimate paperwork and wore a proper Walmart vest and name tag that appeared authentic. David explained that he had been assigned to conduct a comprehensive security assessment of the store's overnight operations, which would involve observing current procedures and suggesting improvements. He claimed to be part of a new corporate initiative to enhance security at stores that had experienced theft or safety incidents. Sandra was initially skeptical, as she hadn't been notified about any security assessment, but David's professional demeanor and apparent knowledge of corporate procedures convinced her to allow him to observe the night's operations. Over the course of the night, David demonstrated an impressive understanding of Walmart's operational procedures, inventory systems, and security protocols. He asked informed questions about staff scheduling, delivery procedures, and cash handling that suggested extensive knowledge of retail operations. He also offered helpful suggestions about improving efficiency and security that impressed Sandra. With their practicality and insight, David's behavior throughout the night was professional and courteous. He helped with stocking when asked, demonstrated familiarity with the store's computer systems, and interacted with the other employees in a way that suggested management experience. By the end of the shift, Sandra was convinced that David was indeed a legitimate corporate representative conducting authorized research. It wasn't until the following Monday that Sandra discovered the horrifying truth about her overnight visitor. When she arrived for her shift, she found multiple police cars in the parking lot and store manager Karen Rodriguez waiting with a grim expression and several boxes of missing inventory. The investigation revealed that David Thompson was not a Walmart employee or corporate representative. He was actually David Thornton, a convicted burglar with an extensive history of retail theft, who had used sophisticated social engineering techniques to gain access to the store and steal thousands of dollars worth of merchandise. Security footage. Review showed that while David had appeared to be helping with legitimate work throughout the night, he had actually been conducting a systematic theft operation. During moments when other employees were busy in different sections of the store, David had been loading high-value items into trash bags and storing them in areas of the store where they could be retrieved later. The theft was discovered when the morning inventory revealed significant shortages in electronics, pharmacy items, and other high-value merchandise. The missing items included dozens of smartphones, tablets, prescription medications, and other products that could be easily resold on the black market. Detective Jennifer Walsh from the Detroit Police Department investigated the case and revealed that David Thornton had been operating similar schemes at retail locations across the Midwest for over 2 years. His method involved extensive research into each target store's operations, overnight staff schedules, and security procedures. He would create convincing false identities and documentation that allowed him to gain access to stores during vulnerable overnight hours. Thornton's preparation for each theft was meticulous and sophisticated. He would spend weeks observing target stores, learning employee names and routines, and studying inventory procedures. He created fake corporate credentials that were convincing enough to fool experienced managers, and he demonstrated expert knowledge of retail operations that he had acquired through years of legitimate employment before turning to crime. The investigation revealed that Thornton had successfully executed similar thefts at 7 other Walmart locations across 3 states, stealing merchandise worth over $200,000. His success depended on his ability to blend in with legitimate operations while exploiting the trust and authority structures that existed in retail environments. Sandra Lopez was devastated by the revelation that she had been deceived and manipulated by someone she had believed to be a legitimate corporate representative. The experience undermined her confidence in her ability to assess people and situations, and she struggled with feelings of responsibility for the theft that had occurred under her supervision. The case led to significant changes in Walmart's procedures for verifying corporate representatives and contractors. New protocols required multiple forms of identification and direct confirmation with corporate headquarters before any outside personnel could be allowed access to store operations. Overnight managers received additional training in recognizing social engineering tactics and unauthorized access attempts. Thornton was eventually arrested and charged with theft, fraud, and criminal impersonation. The investigation revealed that he had been planning to expand his operation to include even larger retail chains and had been recruiting accomplices to help him target multiple stores simultaneously. His arrest disrupted what appeared to be a growing network of sophisticated retail criminals. The psychological impact on Sandra and her team was long-lasting. The knowledge that they had been working alongside a criminal for an entire night, helping him steal from their own store, created feelings of violation and vulnerability that affected their ability to trust new people and situations. Several employees requested transfers to day shifts, finding overnight work too unsettling after learning how easily their security could be compromised. Houston, Texas is a city that never truly sleeps, and the Walmart Supercenter on Westheimer Rhodes serves customers around the clock in one of America's most diverse and bustling metropolitan areas. It was here that overnight cashier Lisa Garcia encountered something that challenged every assumption about consciousness, free will, and the nature of human behavior during late-night shopping. Lisa had been working the overnight checkout for 8 months, a job that required patience, alertness, and the ability to handle unusual situations with professional composure. The late-night hours brought a unique clientele: shift workers grabbing necessities, insomniacs seeking distraction, and the occasional intoxicated customer who needed gentle guidance through the checkout process. On Wednesday, February 14th, 2024, around 3:15 a.m., Lisa was restocking receipt paper when she noticed a customer approaching her checkout lane in a way that immediately caught her attention. The woman appeared to be in her late 20s, wearing pajamas and slippers as if she had just gotten out of bed. Her movements were slow and deliberate, but there was something mechanical about her gait that suggested she wasn't fully conscious. The customer, later identified as Rachel Martinez from the store's payment records, was pushing a cart filled with a bizarre assortment of items: dozens of candles, several bags of rice, multiple containers of salt, and various cleaning supplies. The combination was unusual enough to warrant attention, but it was Rachel's behavior that truly alarmed Lisa. Rachel moved through the checkout process with robotic precision, scanning items and bagging them without any apparent awareness of what she was doing. Her eyes were open, but they had a glassy, unfocused quality that Lisa associated with severe intoxication or medical emergencies. When Lisa attempted to make conversation, asking if Rachel had found everything she needed, there was no response. Rachel continued scanning items as if Lisa hadn't spoken. Lisa called for supervisor assistance, concerned that she might be dealing with a customer having a medical emergency. Overnight supervisor James Mitchell arrived and observed Rachel's behavior for several minutes before attempting to communicate with her directly. Rachel responded to direct questions in a monotone voice, providing basic information about her purchase, but showing no awareness of her surroundings or situation. Mitchell made the decision to call for medical assistance, believing Rachel might be experiencing a serious health emergency. While they waited for paramedics, Mitchell and Lisa continued to observe Rachel's behavior, noting details that would later prove crucial to understanding what had happened. Rachel completed her purchase methodically, paying with a credit card that she retrieved from her pajama pocket. She entered her PIN correctly and accepted her receipt, but showed no reaction to the total cost of her purchase, over $300 for items she claimed no memory of selecting. When asked where her car was parked, she pointed toward the parking lot but couldn't provide specific information about her vehicle's location or appearance. Paramedics arrived and conducted a thorough evaluation of Rachel's condition. Her vital signs were normal. Neurological tests showed no signs of stroke or other acute medical conditions, and toxicology screening revealed no evidence of drug or alcohol use. However, Rachel maintained that she had no memory of coming to the store or selecting the items she had purchased. The medical team determined that Rachel was experiencing what appeared to be a complex sleepwalking episode, but her ability to drive to the store, navigate the shopping process, and complete a credit card transaction while in this state was unprecedented in their experience. They recommended psychological evaluation and follow-up with a sleep specialist to determine the underlying cause of her condition. Security footage review revealed the extraordinary nature of Rachel's episode. The cameras showed her arriving at the store at 2:30 a.m., walking directly from her car to the entrance with the same mechanical movements Lisa had observed. Once inside, she had moved through the store with purposeful precision, heading directly to specific items without browsing or comparison shopping. Most disturbing was Rachel's apparent knowledge of the store's layout. Despite claiming no conscious memory of the visit, She had navigated directly to items located in different sections of the massive store without hesitation or confusion. She had selected very specific brands and quantities, suggesting either detailed prior planning or access to information she shouldn't have possessed, while unconscious Dr. Sarah Kim, a neurologist specializing in sleep disorders, was consulted. To evaluate Rachel's case, Dr. Kim found the incident troubling because the complexity of behaviors Rachel had demonstrated, driving, shopping, and financial transactions far exceeded what was typically possible during sleepwalking episodes. Most sleepwalkers were capable of only simple routine activities, and they rarely left their homes or engaged in complex decision-making. Further investigation revealed that Rachel had no history of sleepwalking or other sleep disorders. She was a registered nurse who worked regular day shifts and maintained healthy sleep habits. The isolated nature of the incident made it even more puzzling, as sleepwalking typically manifested as recurring episodes rather than single, isolated events. The investigation took an unexpected turn when Dr. Kim discovered that Rachel had recently participated in a clinical trial for a new sleep medication. The trial was being conducted by a pharmaceutical company that was testing treatments for shift work sleep disorder, and Rachel had volunteered as a healthy control subject. However, when Dr. Kim contacted the research facility, she found that the trial had been terminated weeks earlier due to unexpected side effects. Further investigation revealed that several participants in the terminated sleep study had reported incidents of memory loss and unusual nighttime behaviors. The pharmaceutical company had allegedly suppressed reports of these side effects to protect their research investment, and participants had been given inadequate information about potential risks. Rachel's case became part of a larger investigation into unauthorized pharmaceutical testing and the failure of research institutions to properly monitor and report adverse effects. The sleep medication being tested had apparently caused temporary dissociative states in some subjects, during which they could perform complex behaviors, while having no conscious awareness or memory of their actions. The legal proceedings that followed resulted in significant settlements for affected study participants and new regulations for pharmaceutical research involving sleep medications. However, the psychological impact on Rachel and other affected individuals was lasting. The knowledge that they had lost hours of their lives to pharmaceutical-induced unconsciousness, during which they had performed actions they couldn't remember, created ongoing anxiety about their autonomy and self-control. Lisa Garcia continued, working at Walmart, but she requested additional training in recognizing medical emergencies and psychological disturbances. Rachel's case had taught her that apparent normalcy could mask serious underlying problems, and that retail employees needed better tools for identifying customers who might be experiencing medical or psychological crises. In Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the humid summer nights brought more than just oppressive heat to the Walmart Supercenter on Airline Highway. They brought something that would challenge everything overnight stocker Kevin Washington thought he knew about reality itself. Kevin had been working the night shift for 6 years, arriving at 10 p.m. when the store closed to customers and working until 6 a.m. to restock shelves and prepare for the next day's business. He was responsible for the grocery section, a massive area that required careful organization and attention to detail. Kevin took pride in his work, maintaining displays that looked perfect when customers arrived in the morning. The first sign that something was wrong came during the second week of August 2022. Kevin arrived for his shift to find that several aisles in his section had been restocked with products that didn't belong there. Automotive supplies were mixed in with breakfast cereals, clothing items had been placed among canned goods, and pharmacy products were scattered throughout the produce section. Kevin's initial assumption was that the day shift had made errors during restocking or that customers had misplaced items throughout the store. But the randomness and extent of the misplaced inventory suggested something more systematic. It would have taken hours to create such widespread disorder, and there was no logical explanation for how so many different types of products had ended up in wrong locations. Store manager Patricia Chun was equally puzzled by the inventory chaos. Security footage from the previous night showed normal customer activity during store hours, with no indication of the deliberate product displacement that Kevin had discovered. The overnight hours, when the store was close to customers, showed only normal employee activity with no evidence of anyone creating the inventory disorder. The mystery deepened when Kevin discovered that the misplaced items weren't randomly distributed. They had been arranged according to a pattern that seemed purposeful but incomprehensible. Products were grouped by color rather than function, with all red items collected in one area, blue items in another, and so on. The arrangement required knowledge of the store's entire inventory and would have taken hours to complete. Patricia decided to install additional security cameras in the grocery section to monitor for potential explanations of the ongoing inventory disruptions. She also implemented new procedures requiring hourly checks of product placement during overnight shifts. But despite these measures, the mysterious restocking continued night after night. Kevin began to notice other anomalies during his shifts. Equipment that he had left in specific locations would be found elsewhere the next night, always properly stored, but in different areas than where he had placed them. Stock carts would be moved between shifts, sometimes loaded with products that had been perfectly organized according to planogram specifications that Kevin hadn't implemented. The situation escalated when Kevin began finding evidence that someone was working in the grocery section during his shifts, despite the fact that he was the only person assigned to that area. Product displays would be completed overnight in sections where Kevin hadn't worked, organized with professional precision that matched or exceeded his own standards. Security footage review revealed something that shook Kevin's understanding of reality. The cameras showed him working throughout the night, restocking shelves and organizing displays with his usual efficiency and attention to detail. But the footage also showed the same work being performed in different areas simultaneously, as if Kevin was in multiple locations at once. Digital forensics experts examined the security system for evidence of tampering or malfunction, but found no technical explanations for the apparent dual presence captured on multiple camera angles. The footage showed Kevin working efficiently in one location, while identical work was being performed simultaneously in other areas of the store. The investigation revealed that Kevin wasn't experiencing any form of psychological disturbance or medical condition that might explain the phenomena. Medical evaluation showed normal brain function, and psychological testing revealed no signs of dissociative disorders or other conditions that might cause memory gaps or altered consciousness. Dr. Michael Rodriguez, a researcher studying consciousness and perception, was consulted about Kevin's case. Dr. Rodriguez suggested that the phenomena might be related to extremely rare instances of environmental factors affecting human consciousness in ways that weren't yet understood by conventional science. The combination of fluorescent lighting, electromagnetic fields from store equipment, and the repetitive nature of overnight work might create conditions that could theoretically affect perception and behavior in unprecedented ways. The case remained unsolved, but the inventory disruptions ceased after additional security measures were implemented and Kevin was transferred to day shift work. However, Kevin reported that he continued to experience occasional episodes of lost time and found evidence of work being completed that he had no memory of performing, suggesting that whatever had affected him at Walmart might have been a permanent change rather than a temporary phenomenon. Our seventh story brings us to Las Vegas, Nevada, where the glittering lights of the Strip cast long shadows over the more mundane commercial areas where ordinary people live and work. The Walmart neighborhood market on Rainbow Boulevard served as a 24-hour convenience for residents of the surrounding suburbs, including night shift workers from the casinos and hospitals who needed to shop during unconventional hours. Night Manager. David Kim had been running overnight operations at the store for 4 years, developing expertise in handling the unique challenges of 24-hour retail in a city that thrived on nocturnal activity. His customer base included everyone from casino dealers getting off work at dawn to medical professionals finishing night shifts at nearby hospitals. The incident that would haunt David for years began on Sunday, March 19, 2023, when a customer entered the store at 2:45 a.m. with behavior that immediately caught the attention of cashier Maria Santos. The woman, later identified through credit card records as Janet Thompson, appeared to be in her 40s and was dressed appropriately for a quick shopping trip. Jeans, sneakers, and a light jacket suitable for the mild Las Vegas weather. What made Janet's visit unusual was her apparent confusion about the store's layout and inventory. She approached Maria at the customer service counter and asked for help finding items that the store had never carried. She requested directions to a pharmacy section that didn't exist in their neighborhood market format, asked about clothing departments that weren't part of their store's configuration, and seemed genuinely surprised when Maria explained that they didn't carry the specific brands and products she was seeking. Janet's confusion extended beyond simple unfamiliarity with the store layout. She insisted that she had shopped at this exact location many times before and expressed frustration that everything seemed to have been rearranged since her last visit. When Maria explained that the store layout hadn't changed in over 2 years, Janet became more agitated, insisting that Maria was mistaken about the store's configuration. David Kim observed the interaction and decided to approach Janet directly to offer assistance. His conversation with her revealed additional disturbing details about her apparent confusion. Janet described previous shopping trips to the store in detail, mentioning specific employees who didn't work there, referring to departments and services that had never existed, and describing a store layout that didn't match their actual configuration. Most puzzling was Janet's insistence that she had been a regular customer for over 3 years, shopping at the store weekly and developing friendly relationships with multiple employees. She mentioned conversations with workers she claimed to know well, described special services she said the store had provided, and expressed disappointment that her friends among the staff didn't seem to recognize her. David's investigation revealed that Janet Thompson had indeed been shopping at Walmart stores regularly for years, but not at their location. Her credit card records showed frequent purchases at a Walmart supercenter across town that did match many of the features and departments she had described. However, Janet insisted that she had never shopped at that location and maintained that the Rainbow Boulevard store was her regular shopping destination. The confusion deepened when David contacted the manager at the supercenter where Janet's credit card records indicated she had been shopping. Manager Susan Rodriguez confirmed that Janet Thompson was indeed a regular customer at their location, known to employees and security staff as someone who shopped weekly and was always polite and pleasant. However, Rodriguez noted that Janet had not been seen at their store for over 2 weeks, which was unusual for someone who had been a consistent customer for years. Further investigation revealed that Janet had been reporting to friends and family that her regular Walmart had been renovated and that the layout and services had been dramatically changed. She had been complaining about the changes for weeks, expressing frustration that her familiar shopping environment had been altered without notice. Her friends had assumed she was simply adjusting to normal retail updates and hadn't questioned her descriptions of the changes. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a neurologist consulted about Janet's case, recognized the symptoms as consistent with a rare neurological condition affecting spatial memory and location recognition. The condition, known as environmental disorientation syndrome, could cause individuals to become confused about familiar locations while maintaining clear memories of other aspects of their lives. However, Janet's case was unusual because her confusion was specific to retail environments. She had no difficulty navigating her home, workplace, or other familiar locations. The disorientation seemed to be triggered specifically by large retail spaces with similar layouts and lighting conditions. The psychological evaluation revealed that Janet had been under significant stress due to her mother's recent death and her own job insecurity. Dr. Walsh suggested that the combination of grief, stress, and the disorienting effects of fluorescent lighting and large retail spaces might have triggered a temporary neurological condition that affected her spatial memory and location recognition. Treatment for Janet's condition involved a combination of medication to address her stress and anxiety, along with cognitive therapy to help her re-establish familiarity with her regular shopping environments. The process was successful, and Janet eventually returned to normal shopping patterns, though she continued to experience occasional episodes of mild disorientation in large retail spaces. David Kim learned from Janet's case about the importance of recognizing when customer confusion might indicate underlying medical or psychological conditions rather than simple unfamiliarity with store operations. He implemented new training procedures for his staff to help them identify customers who might need medical assistance and to respond appropriately to unusual behavior. The incident also highlighted the psychological impact of large retail environments on individuals who were already experiencing stress or medical conditions. The combination of artificial lighting, vast spaces, and complex layouts could apparently trigger or exacerbate certain neurological conditions, creating customer experiences that were distressing for both individuals and store employees. Asterisk hour. Eighth story unfolds in Seattle, Washington, where the constant drizzle and gray skies create an atmosphere of perpetual twilight that seems to blur the line between reality and nightmare. The Walmart Supercenter on Aurora Avenue operates around the clock, serving a diverse population of shift workers, insomniacs, and night owls who keep the Pacific Northwest's economy running during the dark hours. Security Supervisor Rachel Martinez had been monitoring the store's extensive camera network for 3 years, watching over 40 different camera angles that covered every corner of the massive retail space. Her job required constant attention to multiple video feeds, looking for shoplifters, safety hazards, and unusual incidents that might require intervention. Rachel prided herself on her ability to spot trouble before it escalated and her professional competence in handling security situations. The incident that would challenge everything Rachel understood about surveillance technology began on Friday, November 10th, 2023, during what should have been a routine overnight shift. At 1:20 a.m., Rachel noticed a customer in the electronics section who immediately caught her attention due to his unusual shopping behavior. The man appeared to be in his 30s, well dressed in business casual attire that seemed oddly formal. For middle-of-the-night shopping, he was examining smartphones and tablets with intense focus, but not in the way typical customers evaluated electronics. Instead, he seemed to be studying the devices with technical expertise, as if he was conducting some kind of professional assessment rather than personal shopping. Rachel watched as the man spent over 20 minutes examining a single smartphone display, taking notes on a tablet he carried, and occasionally taking photographs of the devices and their price tags. His behavior suggested either professional competitor research or potential theft planning, both of which warranted continued observation. What made Rachel's monitoring particularly concerning was the man's awareness of the security camera system. He seemed to know exactly where cameras were positioned and adjusted his movements to avoid providing clear facial shots. When he needed to move to locations that were directly monitored, he kept his head down or turned away from camera angles in ways that suggested detailed knowledge of the surveillance system. Rachel attempted to get better camera angles by switching between different feeds, but the man's positioning remained strategically obscured. However, during one of these camera switches, Rachel noticed something that made her question her own perception. Camera 15, which covered the toy section, showed what appeared to be the same man examining children's electronics while camera 23 simultaneously showed him still in the main electronics section. Rachel's initial assumption was that she had confused two different customers who happened to be wearing similar clothing. But as she watched both feeds carefully, she realized that both figures were displaying the same distinctive mannerisms and behaviors. They moved in identical patterns, examined products with the same technical focus, and even took notes on identical tablets. The situation became more disturbing when Rachel discovered that the store's facial recognition system was detecting the same individual in multiple locations simultaneously. The technology, which was designed to track known shoplifters and identify potential security threats, was registering identical biometric markers for customers in different sections of the store at the same time. Rachel called overnight manager James Wright to report the technical malfunction, assuming that the facial recognition system was experiencing some kind of software glitch. Wright arrived at the security office and observed the camera feeds while Rachel explained what she had been seeing. To Wright's amazement, he could also see what appeared to be the same customer in multiple locations. Wright decided to investigate personally, leaving the security office to locate the mysterious customer and determine whether they were dealing with identical twins, sophisticated shoplifters working together, or some kind of technical error in their surveillance system. But when Wright reached the electronics section where one of the customers was supposed to be located, he found the area empty. Returning to the security office, Wright and Rachel reviewed the camera feeds again. The monitors now showed only one customer in the toy section, still examining electronics with the same focused intensity. But the timestamp indicated that the figure in electronics had disappeared at the exact moment Wright had arrived in that section, as if the customer had somehow known about his approach. The investigation revealed that the store's computer systems were registering impossible data about the mysterious customer. Inventory scanners were recording the same individual, checking prices and product information in multiple sections simultaneously. The customer tracking system, which monitored shopping patterns for loss prevention purposes, showed movement patterns that would require the person to be in several places at once. Dr. Sandra Kim, a computer security expert contracted by Walmart Corporate, examined the store's digital systems for evidence of hacking or unauthorized access. Her investigation revealed that someone had indeed penetrated the store's network, but not to steal information or disrupt operations. Instead, the intrusion appeared to be designed to test the limits of the surveillance and tracking systems. The digital evidence suggested that the mysterious customer was using sophisticated technology to manipulate the store's security and inventory systems. Advanced holographic projection equipment could theoretically create multiple visual appearances, while electronic interference could affect biometric recognition systems and create false data in tracking databases. Further investigation revealed that the Seattle incident was part of a larger pattern of technology testing at Walmart locations across the country. Similar reports of customers appearing in multiple locations simultaneously had been documented at stores in 6 different states, always involving individuals who displayed detailed knowledge of retail security systems. Federal cybersecurity investigators were contacted when the pattern suggested coordinated testing of retail surveillance vulnerabilities. The investigation revealed connections to several technology companies that were developing advanced retail security systems. But these companies denied any involvement in unauthorized testing at Walmart locations. The case highlighted the vulnerability of modern retail environments to sophisticated technological manipulation. The integration of digital systems throughout retail operations created new opportunities for criminals and researchers to exploit these systems in ways that traditional security measures weren't designed to detect or prevent. Rachel Martinez received additional training in cybersecurity and digital surveillance after the incident, but she continued to question whether the technology she relied on for security monitoring could be trusted. The knowledge that someone could manipulate multiple systems simultaneously while remaining essentially invisible to conventional detection methods, fundamentally changed her approach to security work. The identity of the mysterious customer was never determined, and similar incidents continued to be reported at retail locations throughout the Pacific Northwest. The ongoing pattern suggested that the technology testing was part of a larger research program with purposes that extended beyond simple retail applications. Milwaukee. Wisconsin's bitter winter nights drive people indoors, seeking warmth and shelter in the few places that remain open when the temperature drops below zero. The Walmart Supercenter on Silver Spring Drive had become an unofficial refuge for those with nowhere else to go, including homeless individuals, night shift workers, and insomniacs who found comfort in the fluorescent-lit aisles during the darkest hours. Pharmacy technician Angela Rodriguez had been working the overnight shift for 18 months, dispensing medications and managing pharmacy operations during the quiet hours when most of the city slept. Her position required specialized training and security clearance as she handled controlled substances and sensitive patient information. Angela took her responsibilities seriously, knowing that people's health and safety depended on her accuracy and professionalism. The incident that would expose a conspiracy reaching the highest levels of corporate and government power began on Wednesday, January 17, 2024. When Angela noticed unusual patterns in the pharmacy's overnight prescription requests. Typically, overnight hours brought predictable demand. Shift workers picking up maintenance medications, emergency prescriptions for sick children, and pain medications for people dealing with acute conditions. But during the first week of January, Angela had been receiving an unusual number of requests for a specific medication combination: sleep aids, anti-anxiety medications, and memory enhancement drugs. The requests came from different customers with different doctors, but the prescription patterns were nearly identical. Each customer requested the same dosages, the same quantities, and the same timing for refills. Angela's pharmacy training had taught her to recognize potential prescription fraud and drug-seeking behavior, but these requests didn't fit typical patterns. The customers were diverse in age and background. The prescriptions came from different medical practices across the city, and the medications requested weren't typically abused or sold illegally. However, the unusual clustering of similar prescriptions during overnight hours warranted investigation. Angela began documenting the unusual prescription patterns and cross-referencing them with patient records and prescribing physician information. Her investigation revealed that while the prescriptions appeared to be legitimate, several of the doctors listed had never written prescriptions for the specific medication combinations being requested. The pharmacy's computer system showed valid prescriptions with proper authorization codes, but the prescribing physicians had no record of treating the patients in question. The investigation expanded when Angela discovered that similar prescription patterns were being reported by overnight pharmacy staff at other Walmart locations throughout Wisconsin and neighboring states. The coordination suggested a systematic effort to obtain specific medications through fraudulent means, but the purpose and scope of the operation remained unclear. Dr. Patricia Chen, Walmart's regional pharmacy director, was contacted about the unusual patterns and launched an internal investigation. Dr. Chun's team discovered that the fraudulent prescriptions were being generated through sophisticated hacking of medical databases and electronic prescription systems. Someone had gained unauthorized access to legitimate medical practices and was creating prescriptions that appeared authentic in all digital records. The sophistication of the operation suggested involvement by individuals with extensive knowledge of pharmaceutical systems and medical database security. The prescriptions were created with attention to detail that included proper patient histories, appropriate drug interactions, and realistic prescribing patterns that would avoid triggering automated fraud detection systems. Federal investigators from the Drug Enforcement Administration were contacted when the scope of the prescription fraud became apparent. The investigation revealed that the fraudulent prescriptions were part of a larger experimental program designed to test the effects of specific drug combinations on human behavior and consciousness. The program, operated by a network of researchers and pharmaceutical companies, was using Walmart's pharmacy operations as distribution points for experimental medications that hadn't been approved for human use. The overnight hours provided ideal conditions for distributing these medications to test subjects who had been recruited through various means, including online advertisements for paid research participation. Angela's investigation had uncovered what federal agents describe as one of the largest unauthorized pharmaceutical experiments in American history. The program involved hundreds of test subjects across multiple states who were receiving experimental medications disguised as legitimate prescriptions for common conditions. The health effects of the unauthorized medications were still being evaluated when the program was exposed, but preliminary investigations suggested that many test subjects had experienced significant side effects, including memory loss, altered consciousness, and behavioral changes that persisted long after they stopped taking the medications. Legal proceedings against the individuals and organizations involved in the pharmaceutical conspiracy continued for years, with multiple criminal convictions and civil settlements for affected patients. However, the full scope of the program and its long-term effects on test subjects remain subjects of ongoing investigation and litigation. Angela Rodriguez was recognized for her role in exposing the conspiracy, but the experience left her questioning the integrity of pharmaceutical systems and her own profession. She transferred to day shift work and eventually left the pharmacy field entirely, finding it impossible to trust the systems and institutions she had once believed were designed to protect public health. The case led to significant reforms in pharmaceutical security and oversight, including enhanced monitoring of prescription patterns and improved verification procedures for electronic prescriptions. However, the incident demonstrated the vulnerability of medical systems to sophisticated manipulation and the potential for pharmaceutical research to be conducted without proper oversight or patient consent. Oklahoma City's sprawling metropolitan area includes numerous 24-hour Walmart locations that serve the city's diverse population during all hours of the day and night. The Supercenter on South Pennsylvania Avenue had developed a reputation among overnight employees as one of the busier locations, with steady customer traffic even during the early morning hours when most retail stores were closed. Customer service. Associate Jennifer Miller had been working the overnight shift for 2 years, handling returns, exchanges, and customer inquiries during the quiet hours when the store's atmosphere felt more intimate and personal. Jennifer enjoyed the overnight work because it allowed her to develop relationships with regular customers and provide personalized service that was often impossible during busy daytime hours. The incident that would challenge Jennifer's understanding of reality began on Tuesday, August 8, 2023, when she encountered a customer whose behavior was so unusual that it defied logical explanation. The woman, who appeared to be in her early 30s with short brown hair and wearing a distinctive red jacket, approached the customer service counter at 2:30 a.m. with a return request that immediately caught Jennifer's attention. The customer, who identified herself as Sarah Wilson, wanted to return a complex electronic device that she claimed was defective. She had a receipt showing that the item had been purchased earlier that day, and she provided a detailed explanation of the product's problems that demonstrated familiarity with its features and functions. Everything about the return request seemed routine and legitimate. However, Jennifer immediately recognized Sarah Wilson as someone she had seen in the store just 30 minutes earlier. The distinctive red jacket and short brown hair were unmistakable, and Jennifer clearly remembered observing the same woman shopping in the grocery section while handling another customer's inquiry. But according to the receipt, Sarah's purchase had been made at 10:30 a.m. that morning, over 16 hours earlier. Jennifer was puzzled by the timing discrepancy, but processed the return according to standard procedures. Sarah was polite and patient during the transaction, providing appropriate identification and answering Jennifer's questions about the defective product with knowledge that suggested she had indeed purchased and used the item. As Sarah left the customer service area, Jennifer watched her head toward the exit, thinking the interaction was complete. But less than 10 minutes later, the same woman in the same red jacket approached the counter again, this time with a completely different return request for a different product, with a different receipt. Jennifer was certain this was the same customer, but when she mentioned their previous interaction, Sarah seemed genuinely confused. She insisted that this was her first visit to the store that night, and claimed to have no memory of any previous return transaction. When Jennifer showed her the paperwork from the earlier return, Sarah appeared surprised and concerned, asking if there had been some kind of mistake in the store's records. The situation became more complex when Jennifer discovered that the second return was also legitimate according to store records. The product Sarah was returning had been purchased with a credit card registered to her name, and the receipt showed a transaction that had occurred at a time when Jennifer was certain Sarah had been in the store for her first return. Jennifer called for supervisor assistance, and overnight manager Robert Chun arrived to investigate the unusual situation. Chun reviewed the customer service transaction logs and confirmed that both returns had been processed legitimately, but the timing of the transactions made it impossible for them to have been conducted by the same person under normal circumstances. Security footage review revealed something that challenged everyone's understanding of what they had witnessed. The cameras clearly showed Sarah Wilson conducting both return transactions at the customer service counter, but they also showed the same woman shopping in other sections of the store during the times when she was supposedly completing returns. Footage indicated that Sarah had been in multiple locations throughout the store simultaneously, conducting different activities while maintaining the same appearance and behavior patterns. Digital analysis confirmed that the video was authentic and unedited, with no evidence of technical manipulation or recording errors. Dr. Michael Torres, a researcher studying consciousness and perception, was consulted about the incident when standard explanations failed to account for the observed phenomena. Dr. Torres suggested that the case might represent an extremely rare instance of dissociative identity manifestation, where an individual could unconsciously create multiple behavioral states that operated independently. However, psychological evaluation of Sarah Wilson revealed no evidence of dissociative disorders or other mental health conditions that might explain the apparent multiple presence. She was a healthy, well-adjusted professional with no history of psychological problems or unusual behaviors. The investigation revealed that Sarah had been participating in a clinical trial for experimental sleep medications, similar to cases documented at other retail locations. The medication being tested was designed to improve memory consolidation during sleep, but participants had reported side effects including memory gaps and unusual nighttime behaviors. Further investigation revealed that the pharmaceutical company conducting the sleep study had been testing their experimental medications in real-world environments, using retail locations like Walmart as observation laboratories. Participants were unknowingly monitored during their daily activities to assess how the medications affected their behavior and decision-making processes. The revelation that customers were being used as unwitting test subjects in pharmaceutical experiments conducted within retail environments led to federal investigations and criminal charges against the researchers involved. The program was shut down, and affected participants received medical treatment and legal compensation for their involuntary participation in unauthorized experiments. Jennifer Miller and Robert Chun received counseling and support to help them process the psychological impact of discovering that their workplace had been used as a testing ground for experimental pharmaceutical manipulation. Both employees requested transfers to day shifts, finding overnight retail work too unsettling after learning about the covert experiments that had been conducted around them. In December 2024, a massive data breach at Walmart's corporate headquarters in Bentonville, Arkansas, exposed internal documents that revealed the shocking truth behind the incidents we've been exploring. The leaked materials, authenticated by cybersecurity experts and investigative journalists, outlined a comprehensive experimental program that had been operating within Walmart stores nationwide for over 8 years. The program, codenamed Project Consumer Dynamics, represented the largest covert human experimentation initiative conducted on American soil since the CIS-MKUltra experiments of the Cold War era. Unlike those historical programs which operated in secret government facilities, Project Consumer Dynamics conducted its experiments in plain sight, disguised as routine retail operations in stores visited by millions of unsuspecting customers. According to the leaked documents, every incident we've examined tonight was not a random occurrence, but a carefully orchestrated experiment designed to test the limits of human perception, behavior modification, and social control. The stalking incidents were tests of surveillance detection and evasion training. The memory loss cases were trials of pharmaceutical agents designed to create controllable amnesia. The technological anomalies were field tests of advanced manipulation. The documentation revealed that Walmart had partnered with multiple government agencies, pharmaceutical companies, and technology corporations to create what was essentially a nationwide laboratory for studying human behavior under controlled conditions. The company's extensive network of stores, comprehensive surveillance infrastructure, and massive customer database made it an ideal testing ground for experimental technologies and techniques. Project Consumer Dynamics operated through carefully compartmentalized divisions within Walmart's corporate structure, with most employees unaware of the program's existence or their role in facilitating experiments. Store managers, security personnel, and other staff members were unknowingly implementing testing protocols disguised as routine operational procedures. The selection criteria for experimental subjects were sophisticated and discriminatory, targeting individuals who were socially isolated, financially vulnerable, or experiencing personal crises that would make them less likely to report unusual experiences or be believed if they did speak out. The program's architects had identified specific psychological profiles that indicated susceptibility to various forms of manipulation and control. The technological infrastructure deployed for these experiments included subsonic audio systems that could induce specific emotional states, electromagnetic field generators that could affect cognitive function, and advanced holographic projection systems that could create the perceptual anomalies reported by customers and employees throughout our stories. The leaked documents revealed that the memory manipulation incidents involved pharmaceutical agents dispersed through air handling systems during specific time periods when targeted individuals were likely to be shopping. The substances were designed to create temporary amnesia while leaving subjects susceptible to external direction and control. The apparent supernatural phenomena, multiple presence, impossible timing, and reality distortions were actually the results of sophisticated technological systems that could manipulate perception and create experiences that challenged observers' understanding of physical reality. These systems were being tested to determine their effectiveness for various applications, including crowd control, interrogation enhancement, and political manipulation. Federal investigations launched in response to the data breach revealed that Project Consumer Dynamics had affected hundreds of thousands of customers across all 50 states, with many participants suffering long-term psychological and physical effects from their unwitting participation in unauthorized experiments. The program had operated with funding from multiple government agencies and had connections to Similar programs in other countries. The legal proceedings that followed resulted in the largest class action settlement in American retail history, with Walmart paying billions in damages to affected customers and implementing comprehensive reforms to prevent similar programs. However, the revelation that a major corporation could conduct extensive human experimentation without detection for nearly a decade raised fundamental questions about corporate power, government oversight, and individual privacy rights. Criminal prosecutions of the individuals responsible for Project Consumer Dynamics revealed connections to a broader network of organizations conducting unauthorized human experiments using commercial and institutional cover. The program represented just one component of a larger effort to develop advanced behavioral control technologies for various applications, including military, political, and commercial purposes. The exposure of Project Consumer Dynamics led to significant reforms in corporate oversight, retail security practices, and pharmaceutical research regulations. However, the incident demonstrated that large-scale human experimentation could be conducted in plain sight, disguised as normal commercial activities and protected by corporate secrecy and legal immunity. For the employees who worked in affected stores, the revelation that their workplace had been used as a testing ground for experimental manipulation created lasting trauma and distrust. Many former Walmart employees reported difficulty maintaining employment in retail environments, finding it impossible to trust that their work wasn't facilitating similar programs. The customers who had been unwitting subjects in these experiments faced ongoing challenges with memory, perception, and psychological health. Support groups were established to help affected individuals cope with the knowledge that their experiences and behaviors had been manipulated for research purposes, and many continued to struggle with questions about the authenticity of their own memories and decisions. Our 12th story takes us to Austin, Texas, where overnight maintenance worker Carlos Rodriguez discovered that some customers aren't just shopping late, they're shopping in a time that shouldn't exist. Carlos had been working the maintenance shift at the Walmart Supercenter on Ben White Boulevard for 4 years, responsible for cleaning and maintaining the massive store during overnight hours when customer traffic was minimal. His routine was methodical and predictable. He would start at the front of the store and work his way systematically through each section, ensuring everything was clean and properly organized for the next day's customers. The incident that would haunt Carlos for years began on Thursday, March 21, 2024, when he encountered a customer whose presence in the store defied logical explanation. The woman appeared to be in her 40s, wearing a business suit that seemed inappropriately formal for a late-night shopping trip. She was pushing a cart through the grocery aisles with mechanical precision, selecting items according to what appeared to be a detailed list. What immediately caught Carlos's attention was the time displayed on his maintenance schedule tablet. 3:47 a.m. The store had been closed to customers since midnight, and security had confirmed that all entrances were locked. Yet here was a customer shopping as if the store was open during normal business hours. Carlos approached the woman to explain that the store was closed and to help her exit safely. But when he spoke to her, she looked at him with confusion and insisted that it was 10:30 a.m. and that the store was obviously open for business. She showed him her smartphone, which displayed the time as 10:30 a.m., despite the fact that Carlos's tablet, the store's clocks, and every other timepiece in the building showed 3:47 a.m. The woman, who identified herself as Margaret Stevens, explained that she was doing her weekly grocery shopping before work and couldn't understand why Carlos was telling her the store was closed. She pointed to other customers throughout the store, insisting that there were clearly other people shopping, and that all the departments appeared to be fully operational. Carlos looked in the direction Margaret was pointing and saw empty aisles illuminated only by emergency lighting. The store was clearly closed, with no other customers present, and most departments shut down for the night. But Margaret continued to insist that she could see dozens of other shoppers moving through the aisles, employees working at various departments, and normal retail activity taking place around them. Carlos contacted overnight supervisor Lisa Kim to report the unusual situation. Kim arrived to find Margaret continuing her shopping routine, selecting items from shelves and placing them in her cart while maintaining her insistence that the store was open during normal business hours. Margaret's behavior was calm and rational, but completely disconnected from the actual reality of their situation. Kim attempted to escort Margaret to the customer service area to resolve the situation, but Margaret resisted, explaining that she still had items to collect according to her shopping list. She seemed genuinely confused about why they were trying to interrupt her routine shopping trip and couldn't understand their insistence that the store was closed. Security footage review revealed something that challenged everyone's understanding of what they were witnessing. The cameras showed Margaret entering the store through the main entrance at 3:30 a.m., but the entrance had been securely locked since midnight. The footage showed her walking through locked doors as if they were open, without any indication of forced entry or security breach. Even more disturbing was what the cameras captured of Margaret's shopping behavior. The footage showed her interacting with employees and other customers who weren't visible on any of the security feeds. She could be seen having conversations with invisible people, waiting in checkout lines that didn't exist, and responding to store announcements that weren't being broadcasted. Dr. Patricia Martinez, a neurologist specializing in temporal lobe disorders, was consulted about Margaret's case. Dr. Martinez recognized the symptoms as consistent with a rare neurological condition that could cause individuals to experience complex hallucinations involving time displacement and alternative realities. However, the specificity and detail of Margaret's experience exceeded anything documented in medical literature. The investigation revealed that Margaret had no history of neurological or psychological conditions that might explain her experience. She was a successful business consultant with no medical problems and no use of medications that might cause hallucinogenic effects. Her family and colleagues described her as stable, reliable, and completely grounded in reality. Further investigation revealed that Margaret had recently purchased a new smartphone with advanced augmented reality capabilities. The device had been programmed with experimental software that was designed to overlay digital information onto the user's real-world environment. However, the software appeared to have malfunctioned, creating immersive hallucinations that were indistinguishable from reality. The smartphone manufacturer, when contacted by investigators, revealed that Margaret's device was part of a limited beta test for augmented reality shopping applications. The software was designed to allow customers to visualize store layouts, product information, and shopping assistance while in retail environments. However, the experimental technology had apparently created false sensory experiences that completely replaced Margaret's perception of actual reality. The case led to immediate suspension of the augmented reality testing program and federal investigations into the safety and oversight of experimental consumer technologies. Margaret received medical treatment and psychological support to help her process the disorienting effects of the technological manipulation, but she continued to experience occasional episodes of temporal confusion for months after the incident. Carlos Rodriguez requested additional training in recognizing technological and medical emergencies after learning about Margaret's case. The incident had taught him that apparent customer confusion might indicate serious underlying problems that required professional intervention rather than simple customer service assistance. Phoenix, Arizona's tech corridor includes several 24-hour retail locations that serve the area's population of shift workers, programmers, and technology professionals who maintain the digital infrastructure that keeps the modern world running. The Walmart neighborhood market on Central Avenue had become a popular destination for late-night shopping among the tech community, offering convenience and privacy for people whose schedules didn't align with traditional retail hours. Software. Engineer Daniel Kim had been shopping at the Central Avenue location for 2 years, typically stopping by after finishing late programming sessions at his nearby office. Daniel was working on artificial intelligence applications for a major technology company, and he appreciated the quiet atmosphere of overnight shopping that allowed him to decompress after intense coding sessions. The incident that would expose a vast technological conspiracy began on Monday, September 4th, 2023, when Daniel encountered something that challenged his understanding of digital technology and artificial intelligence. As he was shopping for groceries around 2 a.m., he noticed another customer who bore an uncanny resemblance to himself. Not just similar features, but an exact duplicate down to clothing, mannerisms, and even the specific items being selected. Daniel's initial assumption was coincidence, or perhaps an unusual case of someone with similar appearance and shopping habits. But as he observed the other customer more carefully, he realized that the resemblance was far too precise to be natural. The duplicate was wearing identical clothing, carrying the same brand of laptop bag, and even had the same slight limp that Daniel had developed after a recent running injury. When Daniel attempted to approach his apparent double, the duplicate immediately moved away, maintaining distance while continuing to shop. The duplicate's movements were fluid and natural, but there was something mechanical about the timing and precision that reminded Daniel of the artificial intelligence algorithms he worked with professionally. Daniel decided to test his suspicions by making deliberate movements and observing whether his duplicate would mirror them. When he picked up a specific product, the duplicate selected the same item from a different location. When he checked his smartphone, the duplicate performed the same action with identical timing. The synchronization was too perfect to be coincidental. Using his technical expertise, Daniel began to analyze the situation systematically. He took photographs of his duplicate with his smartphone, but the images showed only empty aisles with no other customer present. Security cameras throughout the store should have captured both figures, but when Daniel checked the monitors near the customer service desk, they showed only his own image moving through the store. The realization that his duplicate might not be physically present led Daniel to consider technological explanations for what he was experiencing. His work with augmented reality and holographic projection made him aware of technologies that could create convincing visual experiences that weren't necessarily based on physical reality. Daniel's investigation revealed that he was wearing experimental contact lenses that had been provided by his employer as part of a workplace safety trial. The lenses were designed to overlay digital information onto his field of vision, providing real-time data about his environment and work tasks. However, the lenses appeared to be malfunctioning or had been programmed with unauthorized software that was creating false visual experiences. Further investigation revealed that Daniel's duplicate was actually a sophisticated artificial intelligence projection designed to study his behavior and decision-making processes. The AI was programmed to mirror his actions while making subtle variations that allowed researchers to analyze how environmental factors influenced his choices and behavior patterns. The technology involved was far more advanced than anything Daniel had encountered in his professional work, suggesting development by organizations with resources and capabilities beyond typical commercial research. The projection system could create visual, auditory, and even tactile sensations that were indistinguishable from reality, effectively allowing researchers to manipulate his environment without his knowledge or consent. Daniel's employer, when contacted about the experimental contact lenses, initially denied any knowledge of the technology or the research program. However, federal investigations revealed connections between Daniel's company and several government agencies that were developing advanced surveillance and behavioral analysis technologies for national security applications. The case exposed a broader program involving Multiple technology companies that were testing experimental augmented reality and artificial intelligence systems on unwitting employees and customers. The testing was conducted in retail environments where subjects' behavior could be monitored and manipulated without arousing suspicion or requiring specialized laboratory facilities. Daniel's experience led to criminal charges against several individuals involved in the unauthorized testing program. Though many aspects of the technology and its applications remained classified for national security reasons, he received legal compensation for his unwitting participation in the experiments. But the psychological impact of discovering that his reality had been manipulated for months was lasting and profound. The incident led to new regulations governing the testing of augmented reality and artificial intelligence technologies, particularly in commercial environments where the public might be exposed to experimental systems without informed consent. However, the advanced nature of the technology involved suggested that similar programs might be operating in other contexts with oversight mechanisms that weren't adequate to detect or prevent unauthorized experimentation. Buffalo, New York's harsh winters drive people indoors, seeking warmth and shelter during the long nights when temperatures plummet and snow blankets the city in isolation. The Walmart Supercenter on Delaware Avenue had become an essential resource for the community during these difficult months, providing 24-hour access to necessities when other stores were closed and travel was dangerous. Audio technician Michelle Washington had been working the overnight customer service shift for 3 years, helping customers with returns, exchanges, and inquiries during the quiet hours when the store's atmosphere felt more personal and manageable. Michelle's background in audio engineering made her particularly sensitive to the store's acoustic environment, including the constant hum of fluorescent lighting, the mechanical sounds of refrigeration units, and the subtle audio cues used for customer guidance. The incident that would reveal a sinister application of acoustic technology began on Friday, December 8, 2023, when Michelle began experiencing unusual auditory phenomena during her shift. Around 1 a.m., she started hearing what sounded like very low-frequency humming that seemed to come from within the walls and ceiling of the store. The sound was below the range of normal conversation, almost subsonic, but persistent and rhythmic. Michelle's audio engineering training allowed her to recognize that the humming wasn't part of the store's normal acoustic environment. The frequency and pattern were too regular to be mechanical noise from equipment, and the sound seemed to be artificially generated rather than occurring naturally. Using a sound meter app on her smartphone, Michelle confirmed that the humming was occurring at precisely 19 Hz, a frequency known to cause psychological effects in humans. As the night progressed, Michelle noticed that the low-frequency humming was affecting customer behavior in subtle but measurable ways. Shoppers who entered the store during periods of intense humming moved more slowly through the aisles, spent more time examining products, and made larger purchases than customers who shopped during quiet periods. The correlation between the acoustic phenomena and customer behavior was too consistent to be coincidental. Michelle documented her observations throughout the night, recording audio samples of the humming and noting the timing of its occurrence in relation to customer traffic patterns. Her data showed that the low-frequency emissions were being activated during specific time periods and were coordinated with the arrival of certain types of customers. Security Supervisor Robert Chun was contacted about Michelle's concerns, and his investigation revealed additional disturbing details about the store's audio environment. Technical examination of the building's sound system revealed that unauthorized equipment had been installed in the ceiling spaces throughout the store. The equipment was sophisticated and expensive, designed to generate precise acoustic frequencies that could influence human behavior and decision-making. The acoustic manipulation system was connected to the store's customer tracking network, allowing operators to target specific individuals or groups with tailored frequency patterns. The system could induce various psychological states, including relaxation, anxiety, confusion, or heightened suggestibility, depending on the frequencies used and the duration of exposure. Asterisk. Federal investigators were contacted when the scope of the acoustic manipulation became apparent, and their investigation revealed connections to a larger research program studying the effects of environmental factors on consumer behavior. The program involved multiple retail locations and was being conducted by a consortium of technology companies and academic institutions with funding from undisclosed sources. The investigation revealed that Michelle and other employees had been unwittingly participating in the research as both observers and subjects. The acoustic manipulation affected not only customers, but also employees, influencing their perception, decision-making, and memory of events that occurred during their shifts. Dr. Sandra Martinez, an expert in acoustic psychology, examined the equipment and its effects on human subjects. Her analysis revealed that the frequencies being used could cause a range of psychological effects, including memory impairment, increased suggestibility, and altered perception of time and space. Prolonged exposure could potentially cause lasting changes to brain function and behavior. Asterisk. Legal proceedings against the organizations responsible for the acoustic manipulation resulted in significant criminal charges and civil settlements for affected employees and customers. However, the advanced nature of the technology involved suggested that similar programs might be operating in other commercial environments without detection. Michelle Washington suffered lasting effects from her prolonged exposure to the acoustic manipulation, including hearing problems and cognitive issues that affected her ability to work in audio-related fields. She received ongoing medical treatment and legal compensation, but the experience fundamentally changed her relationship with retail environments and technological systems. Asterisk. The case led to new regulations governing the use of acoustic technology in commercial spaces and enhanced oversight of research programs involving human subjects in retail environments. However, the incident demonstrated the vulnerability of public spaces to sophisticated technological manipulation and the potential for covert research programs to operate without adequate safeguards or informed consent. Tucked away in the mountains of Colorado Springs, the Walmart Supercenter on Powers Boulevard served a community that included military personnel, outdoor enthusiasts, and families seeking the quiet safety of suburban mountain living. The store's 24-hour operations provided essential services for shift workers and those whose schedules didn't align with traditional retail hours. Pharmacy. Technician Robert Foster had been working the overnight pharmacy shift for 5 years, dispensing medications and managing pharmaceutical operations during the quiet hours when most customers were emergency cases or shift workers picking up maintenance prescriptions. Robert took his responsibilities seriously, knowing that people's health and safety depended on his accuracy and attention to detail. The incident that would expose a horrifying pharmaceutical conspiracy began on Tuesday, May 15, 2024, when Robert noticed unusual patterns in the store's pharmaceutical waste disposal. Typically, expired or damaged medications were collected in secure containers and disposed of through specialized pharmaceutical waste management services. But Robert began finding evidence that medications were being diverted from the waste stream and cultivated in ways that defied explanation. The discovery started when Robert found evidence that someone had been accessing the pharmacy's secure waste storage area during overnight hours. Items that should have been sealed for disposal were missing, and the security seals on waste containers had been tampered with. Initially, Robert assumed they were dealing with theft of controlled substances for illegal resale, a serious crime that required immediate investigation. However, when Robert examined which medications were being taken, he found a pattern that didn't match typical drug theft. The missing items included mostly common medications with limited street value, antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, and other prescription drugs that weren't typically abused or sold illegally. The selection seemed random unless viewed through a different lens entirely. Robert's investigation led him to discover that the stolen medications were being taken to a makeshift laboratory that had been established in the store's garden center. During overnight hours when the area was close to customers, someone had been using the space to cultivate what appeared to be experimental pharmaceutical compounds using the diverted medications as raw materials. The laboratory setup was sophisticated and dangerous, involving chemical processing equipment that could have posed serious health and safety risks to store employees and customers. The person responsible had apparently been extracting active compounds from stolen medications and combining them to create new pharmaceutical formulations of unknown composition and effect. Security footage revealed that the laboratory operation was being conducted by Dr. Patricia Wilson, a former pharmaceutical researcher who had been dismissed from her previous position due to ethical violations involving unauthorized human testing. Wilson had been entering the store during overnight hours using stolen employee credentials and conducting her illegal research in areas of the store that received minimal security monitoring. The investigation revealed that Wilson had been testing her experimental pharmaceutical compounds on unwitting customers by introducing them into the store's air handling system during specific time periods. The compounds were designed to affect mood, decision-making, and memory formation, allowing Wilson to study their effects on human behavior in a real-world retail environment. Federal Drug Enforcement Administration agents arrested Wilson and shut down her illegal laboratory, but not before dozens of customers and employees had been exposed to her experimental compounds. Medical evaluation of affected individuals revealed various symptoms, including memory problems, altered mood states, and changes in decision-making patterns that persisted for weeks or months after exposure. The case exposed serious vulnerabilities in pharmaceutical waste management and security procedures at retail locations. Wilson had exploited gaps in oversight and monitoring to establish her illegal research operation and expose innocent people to dangerous experimental compounds without their knowledge or consent. Robert Foster suffered health effects from exposure to Wilson's experimental compounds, including respiratory problems and cognitive issues that affected his ability to work in pharmaceutical environments. He received medical treatment and legal compensation, but the experience led him to leave the pharmacy field entirely. The incident resulted in comprehensive reforms to pharmaceutical waste management procedures and enhanced security measures at retail pharmacy locations. However, the case demonstrated that determined individuals with technical expertise could exploit retail environments to conduct unauthorized research with potentially devastating consequences for public health and safety. Our 16th story brings us to Portland, Oregon, where the city's reputation for progressive values and technological innovation masks darker applications of surveillance technology. The Walmart Supercenter on Powell Boulevard served as an unwitting testing ground for experimental crowd monitoring systems that turned ordinary shopping trips into data collection exercises for purposes that customers never could have imagined. Loss Prevention specialist Jennifer Walsh had been monitoring the store's security systems for 4 years, using an array of cameras, sensors, and digital tracking tools to prevent theft and ensure customer safety. Her work required expertise in both traditional security techniques and emerging technological solutions for retail loss prevention. The incident that would expose a vast surveillance conspiracy began on Wednesday, August 16, 2023, when Jennifer noticed that the store's customer tracking systems were generating impossible data about shopping patterns and customer behavior. The systems were designed to monitor customer movements, analyze shopping habits, and identify potential security threats through automated analysis of surveillance footage. But the data being generated showed customer behaviors that defied physical reality. The tracking systems recorded individuals moving through the store at speeds that would be impossible for human locomotion, appearing in multiple locations simultaneously, and demonstrating shopping patterns that required knowledge of inventory and layout that ordinary customers shouldn't possess. Jennifer initially assumed that the tracking systems were malfunctioning due to technical problems or software errors. But systematic testing of the equipment revealed that all systems were functioning within normal parameters. The impossible data was being generated by actual customer behaviors that somehow exceeded the normal limits of human capability. The investigation revealed that certain customers were demonstrating enhanced abilities while shopping in the store. They could locate specific items without searching, navigate through complex layouts with perfect efficiency, and make purchasing decisions based on information that wasn't available through normal retail channels. These enhanced customers moved through the store with machine-like precision while maintaining apparently normal human appearance and behavior. Further investigation revealed that the enhanced customers were participants in an experimental program that was testing cognitive augmentation technologies in real-world retail environments. The participants had been implanted with experimental neural interfaces that provided them with direct access to the store's inventory databases, layout information, and customer analytics systems. Asterisk. The neural interface technology allowed participants to access information about product locations, prices, and availability directly through their augmented consciousness. They could mentally query the store's computer systems and receive responses that appeared in their field of vision as overlaid digital information. The technology essentially turned human customers into hybrid biological digital entities with capabilities that exceeded normal human limitations. Dr. Michael Torres, a neurotechnology researcher consulted about the case, explained that the neural interface technology being tested represented a significant advancement in brain-computer interaction. However, the testing was being conducted without proper oversight or informed consent, and the long-term health effects of the implants were unknown and potentially dangerous. Investigation revealed that the experimental program was being conducted by a consortium of technology companies with contracts from various government agencies. The goal was to develop cognitive augmentation systems for military and intelligence applications, but the technology was being tested on civilian populations without their knowledge or permission. Asterisk. Jennifer's discovery led to federal investigations that exposed a nationwide network of unauthorized human experimentation involving neural interface technology. The program had been operating in retail locations across the country, using ordinary shopping environments as testing grounds for experimental cognitive enhancement systems. Criminal prosecutions resulted in significant penalties for the organizations involved, though many aspects of the neural interface technology remained classified for national security reasons. Affected participants received medical treatment to remove the experimental implants and legal compensation for their unwitting participation in unauthorized research. The case led to new regulations governing neurotechnology, research, and enhanced oversight of experimental programs involving human subjects. However, the incident demonstrated that advanced technological manipulation could be deployed in public spaces without detection by conventional security measures or regulatory oversight. Jennifer Walsh continued working in loss prevention, but with a new understanding of the potential for surveillance technology to be used for purposes far beyond legitimate security applications. The knowledge that retail environments could serve as testing grounds for experimental technologies changed her approach to monitoring and customer interaction. Albuquerque, New Mexico's high desert landscape creates an atmosphere of isolation that seems to amplify the psychological effects of extended solitude and altered consciousness. The Walmart Supercenter on Coors Boulevard operated as a 24-hour oasis in the urban desert, serving a diverse population that included shift workers, insomniacs, and individuals whose unconventional schedules kept them active during the dark. Hours. Night shift stalker. Patricia Martinez had been working overnight inventory management for 6 years, responsible for maintaining product organization and availability during the hours when delivery trucks arrived and merchandise was processed. For the next day's customers, Patricia's work required attention to detail and the ability to work independently in the vast, quiet store during the hours when human contact was minimal. The incident that would challenge Patricia's understanding of human memory and consciousness began on Thursday, November 30th, 2023, when she encountered a customer whose presence in the store seemed to trigger impossible changes in her own memories and perception of reality. The customer appeared to be an elderly woman in her 70s, well-dressed and articulate, but moving through the store with an intensity that suggested urgent purpose rather than casual shopping. The woman approached Patricia around 3 a.m. and asked for help locating specific items that related to memory enhancement and cognitive function. She requested supplements, books, and other products that might help someone dealing with memory loss or cognitive decline. Her manner was polite but urgent, as if she was searching for solutions to a serious and immediate problem. As Patricia helped the woman locate the requested items, she began experiencing strange fluctuations in her own memory and awareness. Details about her personal life that should have been clear and accessible became fuzzy and uncertain. She found herself unable to remember specific events from recent days, while simultaneously experiencing vivid memories of events that she was certain had never actually occurred. The memory effects intensified as Patricia spent more time with the elderly customer. She began remembering conversations they had supposedly had during previous encounters, detailed discussions about Patricia's family, work, and personal interests. But Patricia was certain she had never met this woman before, and the memories felt foreign and artificial despite their apparent clarity and detail. Dr. Jennifer Kim, a neurologist specializing in memory disorders, was consulted about Patricia's experience. Dr. Kim recognized the symptoms as consistent with exposure to experimental pharmaceutical compounds that were designed to manipulate memory formation and recall. The compounds could create false memories while suppressing access to authentic personal experiences. The investigation revealed that the elderly customer was actually Dr. Helen Foster, a former neuroscientist who had been conducting unauthorized research into memory manipulation and consciousness alteration. Foster had been expelled from the academic community for conducting illegal experiments on human subjects, but she had continued her research using retail environments as testing grounds. Foster's technique involved pharmaceutical compounds that could be absorbed through skin contact or inhalation, allowing her to dose unwitting subjects while appearing to conduct normal social interactions. The compounds affected memory formation and recall in ways that allowed Foster to implant false memories while studying how these memories integrated with subjects' authentic experiences. The memory manipulation technology being tested had potential applications for military and intelligence operations, including interrogation enhancement and the creation of artificial cover identities for covert operatives. However, Foster's unauthorized research was exposing civilian populations to dangerous experimental compounds with unknown long-term effects. Federal investigations revealed that Foster was part of a larger network of researchers who had been conducting similar unauthorized experiments at retail locations throughout the Southwest. The program involved testing various approaches to memory manipulation, consciousness alteration, and behavioral control using unwitting civilian subjects. Patricia Martinez underwent extensive medical treatment to address the effects of memory manipulation, including therapy to help her distinguish between authentic and artificially implanted memories. The process was lengthy and challenging, as the false memories created by Foster's compounds were indistinguishable from real experiences in terms of emotional impact and apparent authenticity. criminal proceedings against Foster and her associates, resulted in significant prison sentences and the shutdown of the unauthorized research network. However, many affected individuals continued to struggle with questions about the authenticity of their memories and experiences, creating lasting psychological trauma that extended far beyond the immediate effects of the experimental compounds. Our 18th story takes us to the heart of America's technology sector in San Jose, California, where the boundaries between cutting-edge science and impossible reality become frighteningly thin. The Walmart neighborhood market on Snell Avenue served the diverse population of Silicon Valley, including technology workers, researchers, and entrepreneurs who kept the digital economy running during all hours. Quantum physicist Dr. Sarah Chun had been shopping at the Snell Avenue location for 3 years, typically visiting during overnight hours when she finished late research sessions at nearby Stanford University. Sarah's work involved experimental quantum mechanics and consciousness studies, making her uniquely qualified to recognize phenomena that defied conventional understanding of physics and reality. The incident that would challenge everything Sarah understood about quantum mechanics and human consciousness began on Monday, October 2, 2023, when she encountered something in the store that appeared to violate fundamental laws of physics. While shopping for groceries around 2:30 a.m., Sarah observed another customer who seemed to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. The customer appeared to be a middle-aged man in his 40s, wearing casual clothing and pushing a shopping cart through the produce section. But Sarah's trained eye noticed something impossible. The man was selecting different items from the same display simultaneously, as if multiple versions of himself were making different choices at the same moment. Sarah's scientific training led her to observe the phenomenon systematically, taking careful notes about what she was witnessing. The customer seemed to exist in multiple probability states, with different versions of himself making different decisions about product selection while occupying the same physical space. The effect was subtle but consistent, visible to someone. With Sarah's expertise in quantum mechanics, using her knowledge of quantum theory, Sarah began to analyze what she was observing in terms of known physical principles. The customer's behavior seemed to demonstrate macroscopic quantum superposition, a phenomenon that should be impossible according to conventional understanding of how quantum mechanics operates at the scale of human-sized objects. Sarah attempted to document the phenomena using her smartphone, but the camera captured only normal customer behavior, with no indication of the quantum effects she was observing directly. The recording showed a single individual making ordinary shopping choices, but Sarah continued to see multiple probability states playing out simultaneously. The investigation revealed that the customer was actually Dr. Michael Torres, a quantum computing researcher who was participating in an experimental program designed to test the effects of quantum field manipulation on human consciousness. Torres had been exposed to experimental quantum field generators that were designed to create macroscopic quantum effects in biological systems. The technology involved was highly classified and represented a significant advancement in quantum mechanics applications. The quantum field generators could theoretically create localized areas where the normal rules of physics were suspended or altered, allowing for phenomena that would be impossible under ordinary conditions. Federal investigators classified most details about the quantum manipulation technology, but they confirmed that unauthorized testing had been conducted in several retail locations without proper oversight or safety protocols. The potential effects of quantum field exposure on human health and consciousness were unknown, and the testing program was immediately suspended pending safety evaluation. Sarah Chen's expertise in quantum mechanics made her a valuable consultant for the investigation, but the experience fundamentally changed her understanding of the potential applications and dangers of quantum technology. She became an advocate for ethical oversight of quantum research and enhanced Safety protocols for experiments involving quantum field manipulation. Dr. Torres underwent extensive medical evaluation to assess the effects of quantum field exposure. But the technology involved was so advanced that medical science had no established protocols for treating potential quantum-related health effects. He continued to participate in follow-up studies to monitor his condition and help researchers understand the implications of macroscopic quantum manipulation. The case remained largely classified due to national security implications, but it led to enhanced oversight of quantum research programs and new safety protocols for experiments involving quantum field manipulation near civilian populations. The incident demonstrated that advanced physics research could have applications and risks that extended far beyond laboratory environments. Our 19th story reveals the human cost of discovering the truth about corporate conspiracy and the dangerous consequences of trying to expose systematic abuse of power. This account comes from former Walmart corporate security analyst David Richardson, whose investigation into unusual incidents at stores nationwide led him to uncover the full scope of Project Consumer Dynamics and the vast network of human experimentation that had been operating under the guise of retail operations. David had been working in Walmart's corporate security division for 8 years, analyzing incident reports from stores across the country and identifying patterns that might indicate systematic problems or security vulnerabilities. His job involved reviewing thousands of reports monthly, looking for trends in theft, customer incidents, and employee safety issues that required corporate intervention. During the summer of 2024, David began noticing unusual patterns in incident reports from 24-hour stores nationwide. The reports described customer behaviors and phenomena that seemed to cluster around certain time periods and geographic regions, suggesting coordination rather than random occurrence. The incidents included memory loss, impossible customer movements, technological anomalies, and other phenomena that defied conventional explanation. David's investigation revealed that the unusual incidents were connected to special corporate programs that were being implemented at select store locations. These programs involved equipment installations, staff training modifications, and operational changes that were described in corporate documents as customer experience enhancements and security upgrades. Further investigation revealed that the customer experience enhancements were actually components of experimental research programs designed to test various forms of behavioral manipulation and control. The equipment being installed included sophisticated surveillance systems, environmental manipulation devices, and pharmaceutical distribution mechanisms that could affect customer and employee behavior without detection. David discovered that his own employer had been participating in a vast conspiracy involving government agencies, pharmaceutical companies, and technology corporations to use retail environments as testing grounds for experimental manipulation technologies. The program involved testing techniques for crowd control, behavioral modification, and consciousness alteration on unwitting civilian populations. The documentation David uncovered revealed that Project Consumer Dynamics was just one component of a larger research initiative designed to develop technologies for social and political control. The ultimate goal was to create systems that could manipulate human behavior on a massive scale, potentially affecting entire populations through environmental manipulation in commercial and institutional settings. David's decision to expose the conspiracy was motivated by his growing horror at the scope of the human rights violations being committed by his employer and its partners. The research programs were affecting hundreds of thousands of people without their knowledge or consent, causing psychological and physical harm while advancing technologies that could be used to undermine human autonomy and free will. The process of gathering and documenting evidence was dangerous and challenging. David had to carefully copy classified materials while avoiding detection by corporate security systems that monitored employee access to sensitive information. He also faced the risk of retaliation from powerful organizations that had invested billions of dollars in the research programs he was trying to expose. David's decision to contact investigative journalist Rachel Martinez of the Washington Post led to a series of articles that exposed Project Consumer Dynamics and triggered federal investigations into corporate human experimentation. The revelation sent shockwaves through the retail industry and led to congressional hearings on corporate accountability and human rights protection. The personal cost to David was severe and immediate. He was terminated from his position within days of the first article's publication and faced aggressive legal action from Walmart's legal department. Corporate security conducted extensive investigations into his personal life and finances, looking for ways to discredit him and undermine his credibility as a whistleblower. David also faced threats and intimidation from unknown sources, including surveillance of his home, interference with his communications, and attempts to sabotage his employment prospects in other industries. The stress of the retaliation campaign affected his physical and mental health, requiring ongoing medical treatment and security measures to protect his safety. Despite the personal consequences, David continued to cooperate with federal investigations and provide testimony about the scope and impact of Project Consumer Dynamics. His evidence was crucial in exposing the full extent of the conspiracy and holding responsible parties accountable for their crimes against human rights and dignity. The legal proceedings that followed resulted in criminal convictions for several corporate executives and researchers involved in the unauthorized experimentation programs. Walmart paid billions of dollars in settlements to affected customers and employees and implemented comprehensive reforms to prevent similar programs from operating in the future. David Richardson became a symbol of corporate whistleblowing and the importance of individual courage in exposing systematic abuse of power. He continued to advocate for transparency and accountability in corporate research while working to rebuild his life and career after the devastating consequences of his decision to speak truth to power. In January 2025, a coordinated investigation by federal law enforcement agencies, congressional committees, and international human rights organizations uncovered the full scope of what investigators termed the largest covert human experimentation program in modern history. The investigation revealed that Project Consumer Dynamics was just one component of a vast network of research programs that had been operating in commercial and institutional environments throughout the United States and internationally. The network included over 200 corporations, government agencies, academic institutions, and private research organizations that had been collaborating to develop and test experimental technologies for behavioral manipulation, consciousness alteration, and social control. The programs had been operating for over 15 years, affecting millions of unwitting subjects through their daily activities in retail stores, restaurants, hotels, transportation systems, and other commercial environments. The retail component of the network, centered around Walmart's extensive store network, had served as the primary testing ground for experimental technologies due to the company's vast customer base, comprehensive surveillance infrastructure, and corporate willingness to participate in classified research programs. However, similar testing had been conducted in other retail chains, shopping malls, airports, and any commercial environment where large numbers of people could be observed and manipulated without detection. The technologies being tested included advanced pharmaceutical compounds that could be dispersed through air handling systems, acoustic manipulation devices that could influence mood and decision-making, electromagnetic field generators that could affect cognitive function, and holographic projection systems that could create convincing false sensory experiences. Most disturbing revelation was that the experimental programs had been designed not just to test individual technologies, but to develop integrated systems for large-scale population control that could be deployed through existing commercial infrastructure without public awareness or government oversight. The network's ultimate goal was to create a society where human behavior could be manipulated and controlled through environmental factors embedded in everyday commercial experiences. Shopping trips, restaurant visits, hotel stays, and other routine activities would become opportunities for behavioral adjustment and social engineering on a scale that could affect entire populations. The investigation revealed that the network had been testing techniques for political manipulation, including methods for influencing voting behavior, consumer choices, and social attitudes through carefully calibrated environmental manipulation in commercial settings. The retail testing programs had provided proof of concept for technologies that could potentially undermine democratic processes and individual autonomy. The scope of the conspiracy extended beyond American borders, with evidence of similar programs operating in multiple countries through partnerships with international corporations and research institutions. The network represented a global effort to develop and deploy behavioral control technologies that could be used by governments, corporations, and other powerful organizations to manipulate populations for various purposes. The human cost of these programs was staggering. Medical evaluations of affected individuals revealed that hundreds of thousands of people had been exposed to experimental compounds, electromagnetic manipulation, acoustic interference, and other forms of technological manipulation without their knowledge or consent. Many suffered lasting physical and psychological effects that would require ongoing medical treatment and support. The psychological impact on employees who discovered they had been facilitating human experimentation was particularly severe. Store managers, security personnel, pharmacy technicians, and other retail workers struggled with guilt and trauma after learning that their normal job duties had been exploited to conduct unauthorized research on their customers and colleagues. Investigation led to the largest criminal conspiracy prosecution in American history, with hundreds of individuals charged with crimes ranging from human trafficking and pharmaceutical fraud to violations of international human rights law. The proceedings revealed details about experimental technologies and research programs that had previously been classified. At the highest levels of government and corporate security, congressional hearings on the retail experimentation conspiracy led to comprehensive reforms and oversight of corporate research programs, enhanced protection for human subjects in experimental studies, and new regulations governing the use of commercial environments for research purposes. However, the revelations raised fundamental questions about the adequacy of existing legal and ethical frameworks for protecting individual rights in an age of advanced technological manipulation. The network's exposure led to a crisis of confidence in commercial institutions and retail environments throughout the United States and internationally. Customers who had been shopping at affected locations struggled with questions about the authenticity of their experiences and the extent to which their behavior and decisions had been manipulated by forces beyond their knowledge or control. Support services were established to help affected individuals cope with the psychological trauma of discovering they had been unwitting subjects in unauthorized experiments. The process of identifying and treating affected individuals was complicated by the defy. The process of identifying and treating affected individuals was complicated. Sophisticated nature of the manipulation technologies, which had been designed to operate below the threshold of conscious awareness, the retail experimentation conspiracy also revealed the vulnerability of democratic societies to systematic manipulation and control through commercial infrastructure. The ability of powerful organizations to conduct large-scale human experimentation without detection demonstrated that traditional oversight mechanisms were inadequate for protecting individual rights and freedoms in the modern technological environment. Legal settlements for affected customers and employees totaled billions of dollars, but money could not fully compensate for the violation of human dignity and autonomy that the experimental programs represented. Many affected individuals continued to struggle with trust issues, anxiety, and questions about their personal agency long after the programs were exposed and shut down. The technology developed through these unauthorized experiments raised ethical questions about the potential applications of behavioral manipulation systems. While some technologies could theoretically be used for beneficial purposes, such as treating mental health conditions or enhancing human capabilities, the same systems could also be used for oppression, control, and the violation of human rights. International human rights organizations condemned the retail experimentation network as a violation of fundamental principles established in the aftermath of World War II regarding the protection of human subjects in experimental research. The case became a landmark in international law regarding corporate accountability and the protection of individual rights in commercial environments. The exposure of Project Consumer Dynamics and its associated programs led to comprehensive changes in how retail environments are regulated and monitored. Enhanced oversight systems were implemented to detect unauthorized research activities, and new legal frameworks were established to protect consumers from experimental manipulation in commercial settings. However, the incident also raised disturbing questions about the extent to which similar programs might be operating in other contexts without detection. The sophisticated nature of the technologies involved and the resources required to develop and deploy them suggested that the retail experimentation network might be just one component of even larger systems for monitoring and controlling human behavior. The investigation continued for years after the initial exposure, with new revelations emerging about the scope and impact of the experimental programs. Each discovery added to the understanding of how deeply commercial manipulation had penetrated American society and how vulnerable ordinary citizens were to sophisticated technological exploitation. For the employees and customers who lived through these experiences, the knowledge that their most routine activities had been opportunities for experimental manipulation created lasting trauma and fundamentally changed their relationship with commercial environments. Shopping, once a mundane and safe activity, became fraught with suspicion and anxiety about what hidden purposes might be served by seemingly innocent interactions. The retail experimentation conspiracy became a defining moment in the relationship between corporations and consumers, revealing the extent to which powerful organizations were willing to violate individual rights and dignity in pursuit of technological advancement and social control. The case served as a warning about the potential for commercial environments to be used as testing grounds for experimental technologies without adequate oversight or protection for human subjects. The ultimate lesson of these 20 stories is that the spaces we consider most safe and familiar, our neighborhood stores, the places where we conduct routine business, the commercial environments that structure our daily lives, can become theaters for manipulation and control that operates beyond our awareness or consent. The fluorescent lit aisles of ordinary retail stores had become laboratories for experiments that challenged the very foundations of human autonomy and dignity. Our 21st story takes us to Nashville, Tennessee, where the Music City's nocturnal energy extends far beyond the honky-tonk bars and recording studios to encompass the 24-hour retail establishments that serve the city's diverse population of musicians, hospitality workers, and creative professionals who keep the entertainment industry running around the clock. Overnight inventory. Manager Marcus Thompson had been responsible for stock management at the Walmart Supercenter on Charlotte Avenue for 7 years, overseeing the complex process of receiving, organizing, and distributing merchandise throughout the massive store. His work required meticulous attention to detail and sophisticated understanding of inventory systems, supply chain logistics, and retail operations. The incident that would challenge Marcus's understanding of physical reality began on Friday, October 13, 2023, when he discovered that inventory was being moved and reorganized during his shifts by someone or something that left no trace of their presence. Items that Marcus had carefully positioned according to planogram specifications would be found in different locations the next night, always properly organized but in configurations that didn't match any official store layout. The mysterious reorganization wasn't random or destructive. Instead, it demonstrated sophisticated understanding of retail operations and inventory management principles. Products were grouped in ways that improved efficiency and customer access. Displays were enhanced with professional quality arrangements. And pricing was optimized according to strategies that exceeded Marcus's own expertise. Marcus initially assumed that other employees were working in his section during different shifts, but investigation revealed that he was the only person assigned to inventory management during overnight hours. Security footage showed Marcus working alone throughout his shifts, with no evidence of additional personnel or unauthorized access to the areas where mysterious reorganization was occurring. The situation became more puzzling when Marcus realized that the inventory changes were being made in real time during his shifts. He would leave a section properly organized, work in a different area for an hour, and return to find improvements that would have taken hours to implement. The timing made it impossible for the changes to have been made by conventional means. Security. Supervisor Jennifer Walsh was contacted about the unusual inventory phenomena, and her investigation revealed something that defied logical explanation. Security cameras showed Marcus working efficiently throughout his shifts, but they also captured impossible activity occurring simultaneously in areas where Marcus wasn't present. The footage revealed that inventory management work was being performed by what appeared to be Marcus himself in multiple locations throughout the store at the same time. The duplicate figures moved with identical mannerisms and demonstrated the same attention to detail and professional competence that characterized Marcus's work. Digital forensics analysis confirmed that the security footage was authentic and unedited, with no evidence of technical manipulation or recording errors. The multiple presence phenomenon was captured on numerous camera angles and corroborated by other store systems, including motion sensors and inventory tracking devices. Dr. Patricia Rodriguez, a researcher studying consciousness and identity, was consulted about Marcus's case. Dr. Rodriguez suggested that the phenomena might represent an extremely rare instance of consciousness bifurcation, where an individual's awareness could somehow operate in multiple physical locations simultaneously while maintaining coherent identity and purpose. However, psychological evaluation of Marcus revealed no evidence of dissociative disorders or other conditions that might explain the apparent multiple presence. He was psychologically healthy and showed no signs of the memory problems or identity confusion typically associated with dissociative phenomena. The investigation revealed that Marcus had been exposed to experimental electromagnetic field generators that had been installed in the store's ceiling spaces as part of an unauthorized research program. The generators were designed to affect consciousness and perception in ways that could theoretically allow for enhanced human capabilities, including expanded awareness and the ability to process multiple streams of information simultaneously. Electromagnetic manipulation technology being tested was connected to military research into enhanced soldier capabilities and industrial applications for improving worker productivity. However, the testing was being conducted without proper oversight or safety protocols, and the effects on human consciousness were unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Federal investigators shut down the electromagnetic manipulation program and arrested the researchers responsible for the unauthorized experimentation. Marcus underwent medical evaluation to assess the effects of prolonged electromagnetic exposure, but the technology involved was so advanced that medical science had no established protocols for treating potential electromagnetic-related health effects. Marcus continued to experience occasional episodes of expanded awareness and enhanced cognitive function for months after the electromagnetic equipment was removed. While these effects might seem beneficial, They created ongoing uncertainty about his mental state and ability to distinguish between normal and enhanced consciousness. The case led to new regulations governing electromagnetic research and enhanced safety protocols for experiments involving consciousness manipulation. However, the incident demonstrated that advanced consciousness research could have applications and risks that extended far beyond laboratory environments and could affect individuals without their knowledge or consent. Seattle, Washington's technology industry creates a unique environment where the boundaries between digital innovation and human exploitation can become dangerously blurred. The Walmart neighborhood market on Capitol Hill served a population of tech workers, artists, and young professionals whose digital lives were increasingly intertwined with their physical experiences in ways they never fully understood. Data analyst Sarah Mitchell had been working overnight customer analytics for Walmart's regional technology division for 4 years, monitoring digital systems that tracked customer behavior, analyzed shopping patterns, and optimized store operations based on real-time data collection. Her work involved sophisticated analysis of customer data streams that provided insights into consumer psychology and behavior. The incident that would expose a massive digital privacy violation began on Wednesday, June 7, 2023, when Sarah discovered that the customer analytics systems were collecting far more personal information than authorized by corporate policies or legal regulations. The data being harvested included detailed psychological profiles, personal communications, financial information, and even biometric data that customers had never consented to provide. Sarah's investigation revealed that the store's customer tracking systems had been modified to capture information from customers' smartphones, fitness devices, and other personal electronics while they shopped. The data collection was conducted through sophisticated wireless interception technology that could access personal devices without triggering security alerts or requiring customer interaction. The harvested data included text messages, emails, phone calls, photographs, location histories, health information, and financial records that provided comprehensive profiles of customers' private lives. The information was being processed by artificial intelligence systems that could predict future behavior, identify psychological vulnerabilities, and develop personalized manipulation strategies for each individual customer. The scope of the data collection was staggering, with the modified systems capturing personal information from thousands of customers daily and transmitting the data to servers operated by organizations that Sarah couldn't identify through normal corporate channels. The data harvesting appeared to be conducted for purposes that extended far beyond legitimate retail analytics or customer service enhancement. Sarah's discovery of the unauthorized data collection put her in a dangerous position. The systems she had uncovered represented massive violations of privacy laws and customer rights, but they were being operated by organizations with the resources and sophistication to conduct electronic surveillance on an unprecedented scale. Exposing the program would require evidence that might be difficult to obtain and could expose her to retaliation from powerful interests. The investigation Sarah conducted revealed connections between the data harvesting program and various government agencies, technology corporations, and research institutions that were developing advanced surveillance and behavioral analysis capabilities. The retail data collection was providing real-world testing data for experimental social control technologies that could be applied in various contexts, including political surveillance and commercial manipulation. Sarah's decision to document and expose the data harvesting program required careful planning and sophisticated technical skills. She had to copy evidence while avoiding detection by the same surveillance system she was investigating, and she needed to protect herself from retaliation by organizations that had demonstrated willingness to violate privacy rights on a massive scale. The process of gathering evidence revealed that the data harvesting program was much larger than Sarah had initially realized. Similar systems were operating at retail locations throughout the Pacific Northwest and beyond, creating a comprehensive surveillance network that could monitor and analyze the behavior of millions of people through their routine commercial activities. Sarah's evidence was provided to investigative journalists and federal law enforcement agencies, leading to criminal investigations and legal proceedings against the organizations responsible for the unauthorized surveillance. The revelations triggered congressional hearings on digital privacy, rights, and corporate accountability in the collection and use of personal data. The legal consequences for the organizations involved in the data harvesting program were severe, with criminal charges for violation of privacy laws and civil settlements totaling billions of dollars for affected customers. However, the technology involved was so advanced that many aspects of the surveillance program remained classified for national security reasons. Sarah Mitchell faced significant retaliation for her role in exposing the data harvesting program, including termination from her position, legal threats, and ongoing surveillance of her personal activities. The stress of the retaliation campaign affected her physical and mental health, requiring ongoing support and security measures to protect her safety. The case led to comprehensive reforms in digital privacy protection and enhanced oversight of corporate data collection practices. However, the incident demonstrated that sophisticated surveillance technology could be deployed in commercial environments without detection by conventional oversight mechanisms or regulatory systems. The psychological impact on customers who learned that their personal information had been harvested without consent was significant and lasting. Many affected individuals reported ongoing anxiety about privacy and digital security, and some changed their shopping and technology usage patterns in ways that affected their daily lives and social interactions. Our 23rd story brings U.S. to the Research Triangle of North Carolina, where the concentration of universities, laboratories, and technology companies creates an environment where experimental science and human testing can intersect in dangerous ways. The Walmart Supercenter on Capitol Boulevard in Raleigh served a diverse population that included researchers, students, and healthcare workers whose professional lives involved cutting-edge science and medical research. Microbiologist Dr. Jennifer Shun had been shopping at the Capitol Boulevard location for 2 years, typically visiting during overnight hours when she finished late laboratory sessions at nearby North Carolina State University. Jennifer's expertise in microbiology and infectious disease research made her uniquely qualified to recognize biological hazards and unusual scientific phenomena. The incident that would expose a terrifying biological experiment began on Monday, November 27, 2023, when Jennifer noticed unusual odors and environmental conditions in the store that suggested the presence of biological agents or chemical compounds that shouldn't exist in a retail environment. The detection started with subtle changes in air quality that Jennifer's trained senses recognized as potentially hazardous. Jennifer's investigation revealed that the store's air handling systems had been modified to disperse experimental biological agents during specific time periods when certain categories of customers were likely to be shopping. The agents were designed to study infectious disease transmission, immune system responses, and the effects of biological manipulation on human behavior and health. The biological agents being dispersed included modified bacteria, viral components, and synthetic compounds that could affect various physiological and psychological functions. The research was apparently designed to test the feasibility of using commercial environments as distribution systems for biological agents that could be deployed for various purposes including crowd control, population studies, and biological warfare applications. Security footage and environmental monitoring data confirmed that biological agent dispersal was being conducted systematically and was coordinated with customer tracking systems that identified specific individuals for targeted exposure. The program involved sophisticated understanding of airflow patterns, biological agent behavior, and human physiology that suggested involvement by highly trained researchers and advanced laboratory facilities. The investigation revealed that Jennifer and hundreds of other customers had been unknowingly exposed to experimental biological agents over a period of months. Medical evaluation of affected individuals revealed various symptoms, including respiratory problems, immune system dysfunction, and neurological effects that were consistent with exposure to unknown biological compounds. Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention investigators were contacted when the scope of the biological experimentation became apparent. Their investigation revealed connections to classified research programs involving biological weapons development and population control technologies that were being tested in civilian environments without proper oversight or safety protocols. Organizations responsible for the biological experimentation included government agencies, academic institutions, and private research companies that were developing biological agents for various military and intelligence applications. The retail testing provided real-world data about biological agent dispersal in human response patterns that couldn't be obtained through laboratory studies alone. Legal proceedings against the responsible organizations resulted in criminal charges for violations of biological weapons treaties and domestic laws prohibiting unauthorized human experimentation. However, many aspects of the biological research program remained classified for national security reasons, limiting public understanding of the full scope and implications of the testing. Jennifer Chun suffered lasting health effects from exposure to the experimental biological agents, including chronic respiratory problems and immune system dysfunction that required ongoing medical treatment. She became an advocate for oversight of biological research and enhanced protection for human subjects in experimental studies. The case led to comprehensive reforms in biological research oversight and new safety protocols for experiments involving infectious agents and biological manipulation. However, the incident demonstrated that biological weapons research could be conducted in civilian environments without detection by conventional public health monitoring systems. Our 24th story takes us to the heart of America's defense technology sector in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where proximity to military installations and defense contractors creates an environment where experimental technologies can be tested with minimal oversight or public awareness. The Walmart Supercenter on Virginia Beach Boulevard served a population that included military personnel, defense contractors, and technology workers whose professional lives involved classified research and development. Cognitive neuroscientist Dr. Michael Torres had been shopping at the Virginia Beach Boulevard location for 18 months, typically visiting during overnight hours when he finished classified research sessions at nearby defense technology facilities. Michael's expertise in brain-computer interfaces and neural augmentation made him uniquely qualified to recognize technological manipulation of human consciousness and behavior. The incident that would expose the most advanced human experimentation program yet documented began on Friday, February 9th, 2024, when Michael noticed that other customers in the store were displaying cognitive abilities that exceeded normal human limitations. These enhanced customers were navigating the store with perfect efficiency, making optimal purchasing decisions, and demonstrating access to information that shouldn't be available to ordinary shoppers. Michael's investigation revealed that the enhanced customers were participants in an experimental neural interface program that was testing direct brain-computer connections in real-world commercial environments. The participants had been implanted with experimental neural devices that provided them with augmented cognitive abilities, including enhanced memory, accelerated decision-making, and direct access to digital information systems. The neural interface technology allowed participants to mentally access the store's inventory databases, customer analytic systems, and environmental control networks. They could query product information, optimize their shopping routes, and even influence store systems through direct neural commands that bypassed conventional user interfaces. Security footage showed the enhanced customers moving through the store with machine-like precision while maintaining apparently normal human behavior. They could locate specific items without searching, navigate complex layouts without confusion, and complete shopping trips in a fraction of the time required by unenhanced customers. The investigation revealed that the neural interface program was being conducted by a classified defense research initiative that was developing cognitive augmentation technologies for military applications. The retail testing provided real-world evaluation of how enhanced individuals could operate in civilian environments without detection or interference. Federal investigators classified most details about the neural interface technology due to national security implications, but they confirmed that unauthorized testing had been conducted on civilian populations without proper oversight or informed consent. The program involved experimental brain surgery and the implantation of devices with unknown long-term health effects. The case exposed serious ethical violations in defense research and the potential for military technologies to be tested on unwitting civilian populations through commercial environments. The Neural Interface Program represented a significant advancement in human augmentation technology, but it was being developed and tested without adequate consideration of human rights or safety concerns. Michael Torres became a crucial witness in federal investigations of the Neural Interface Program, providing expert testimony about the technology and its implications for human consciousness and autonomy. His cooperation with investigators led to suspension of the testing program and enhanced oversight of defense research involving human subjects. The legal proceedings that followed resulted in classified settlements for affected participants and reforms in oversight of military research programs. However, many details about the neural interface technology and its potential applications remain secret, limiting public understanding of the implications for human augmentation and cognitive enhancement. Our final story brings together all the threads we've been following throughout these accounts, revealing the ultimate truth about the systematic manipulation of American retail environments and the vast network of organizations that have been conducting unauthorized experiments on unwitting civilian populations for over 2 decades. In March 2025, a coordinated international investigation involving law enforcement agencies, human rights organizations, and investigative journalists from multiple countries uncovered evidence that the retail experimentation network we've been exploring was just one component of a global system for human monitoring, manipulation, and control that operated through commercial infrastructure in dozens of countries worldwide. The investigation, triggered by the cumulative evidence from hundreds of cases like those we've documented, revealed that Project Consumer Dynamics and its associated programs were part of a larger initiative known internally as the Human Optimization Protocol. This comprehensive program involved systematic testing of technologies for behavioral modification, consciousness manipulation, and population control through everyday commercial and institutional environments. The scope of the Human Optimization Protocol was unprecedented in human history, involving coordination between government agencies, multinational corporations, academic institutions, and private research organizations across multiple continents. The program had been operating for over 20 years, affecting millions of unwitting subjects through their routine activities in retail stores, restaurants, hotels, transportation systems, healthcare facilities, and educational institutions. Technologies being tested included every form of manipulation we've encountered in these stories and many others that hadn't yet been deployed in retail environments. Advanced pharmaceutical compounds, electromagnetic field manipulation, acoustic influence systems, holographic projection technology, neural interface devices, biological agents, quantum field generators, and artificial intelligence systems that could predict and control human behavior with unprecedented precision. The ultimate goal of the Human Optimization Protocol was to create a comprehensive system for managing human society through environmental manipulation that would be invisible to the general population while providing unprecedented control over individual and collective behavior. The system would allow powerful organizations to influence political processes, economic decisions, social attitudes, and personal choices through carefully calibrated manipulation of commercial and institutional environments. The retail component of the protocol had served as the primary testing ground because commercial environments provided ideal conditions for experimenting on large, diverse populations without requiring specialized facilities or obvious research infrastructure. Shopping centers, department stores, and other retail locations could be equipped with experimental technologies while maintaining the appearance of normal commercial operations. The investigation revealed that the network had been testing not only individual manipulation technologies, but also integrated systems that could coordinate multiple forms of influence to achieve specific behavioral outcomes. Customers could be simultaneously affected by pharmaceutical agents, electromagnetic fields, acoustic manipulation, and artificial intelligence systems that work together to create desired psychological and behavioral states. The documentation recovered from network facilities revealed detailed profiles of millions of individuals who had been studied and categorized according to their susceptibility to various forms of manipulation. The profiles included psychological assessments, behavioral predictions, and customized manipulation protocols that could be deployed to influence specific individuals in predictable ways. The human cost of the human optimization protocol was staggering and still being assessed years after its exposure. Medical evaluations revealed that millions of people had been exposed to experimental compounds and technologies with unknown long-term effects. Many suffered from ongoing health problems, psychological trauma, and difficulty distinguishing between authentic experiences and artificially induced memories and perceptions. The network's exposure led to the largest international human rights investigation in modern history, with criminal proceedings in multiple countries and comprehensive reforms and oversight of research involving human subjects. However, the advanced nature of the technologies involved and the resources required to develop them suggested that similar programs might be operating in other contexts without detection. The psychological impact on employees who discovered they had been facilitating human experimentation was particularly severe and widespread. Retail workers, healthcare providers, teachers, and other professionals struggled with the knowledge that their trusted institutions had been compromised and that their normal job duties had been exploited to conduct unauthorized research on the people they served. The investigation also revealed that many of the individuals who had reported unusual experiences over the years had been telling the truth about impossible phenomena, technological manipulation, and systematic abuse. Their accounts, often dismissed as delusion or imagination, were actually accurate descriptions of experimental technologies that operated beyond public knowledge or conventional understanding. The exposure of the Human Optimization Protocol fundamentally changed public understanding of the relationship between individuals and institutions, revealing that trusted commercial and governmental organizations had been systematically violating human rights and dignity for research purposes. The case became a watershed moment in the protection of human subjects and the oversight of experimental research. For the customers and employees who lived through these experiences, the knowledge that their most routine activities had been opportunities for experimental manipulation created lasting trauma and fundamentally changed their relationship with commercial and institutional environments. Shopping, working, and other daily activities became fraught with suspicion and anxiety about hidden purposes and experimental manipulation. The ultimate lesson of these 25 stories is that the systematic violation of human rights and dignity can be disguised as routine commercial operations and can operate on a scale that affects entire populations without detection by conventional oversight mechanisms. The technologies developed through unauthorized human experimentation represent both unprecedented capabilities for human enhancement and unprecedented threats to human autonomy and freedom. The retail experimentation network and the broader human optimization protocol represent a fundamental challenge to democratic society and individual rights. The ability of powerful organizations to manipulate human behavior through environmental factors embedded in everyday experiences threatens the foundations of informed consent, personal autonomy, and democratic participation. You've now heard 25 verified accounts that reveal the terrifying truth about what has been happening in America's retail environments and the broader commercial infrastructure that structures our daily lives. These stories represent just a fraction of the incidents that occurred during the decades that experimental manipulation programs operated in plain sight, disguised as routine business operations. The courage of the individuals who shared their experiences, despite the risk of ridicule or retaliation, made it possible to expose systematic violations of human rights that might otherwise have continued indefinitely. Their willingness to speak truth about impossible experiences, despite skepticism from authorities and society, ultimately led to the protection of millions of other potential victims, the employees who discovered they had been unwittingly facilitating human experimentation faced profound moral and psychological challenges. Their decisions to prioritize human dignity over corporate loyalty, despite the personal and professional costs, demonstrated the importance of individual conscience in confronting institutional abuse of power. The investigation and prosecution of the organizations responsible for these programs required unprecedented cooperation between law enforcement agencies, human rights organizations, and international institutions. The scale and complexity of the conspiracy challenged existing legal frameworks and required new approaches to protecting human subjects and holding powerful organizations accountable. Subscribe to Crime Stories for Sleep because our investigation into these systematic violations of human rights is ongoing. New evidence continues to emerge about the scope and impact of experimental manipulation programs, and understanding these realities is essential for protecting yourself and your community from similar abuse in the future. Hit that notification bell because staying informed about these investigations could be crucial for recognizing and preventing similar programs that might be operating in other contexts. The technologies and techniques used in retail experimentation could be applied in educational institutions, healthcare facilities, transportation systems, and any other environment where people can be observed and manipulated without their knowledge. Share these stories with people you trust, not to create fear or paranoia, but to build awareness and resilience against manipulation. The more people understand these realities, the more difficult it becomes for similar programs to operate without detection, and the more likely it is that future violations will be recognized and stopped before they can cause widespread harm. Like this video to help these verified accounts reach other people who need to understand these realities. The platforms that host this content face pressure to suppress material that reveals uncomfortable truths about powerful institutions. So your engagement is essential for ensuring these warnings reach their intended audience. Comment below if you've experienced anything similar to what you've heard tonight. Crime Stories for Sleep investigates every credible report we receive, and your experience could provide crucial evidence about ongoing manipulation programs that haven't yet been exposed. Your voice matters, and your story could help protect others from similar abuse. Remember that the most important lesson from these 25 stories is that your experiences are valid, your perceptions matter, and your right to live free from manipulation and control is worth defending. The people who shared their stories with us survived because they trusted their instincts, sought help when something felt wrong, and refused to dismiss their experiences even when others didn't believe them. The retail experimentation network was exposed because enough people recognized that something was wrong and had the courage to investigate and speak out. Your awareness, your vigilance, and your willingness to trust your instincts could be the key to preventing similar violations in the future. In a world where your local store could be a laboratory, your routine errands could be data collection exercises, and your most mundane activities could be opportunities for experimental manipulation, the most radical act you can perform is maintaining your awareness and protecting your autonomy. This has been Crime Stories for Sleep, where every nightmare is real, every story is verified, and every revelation brings us closer to understanding the hidden systems that operate within our everyday lives. Until next time, stay aware, stay skeptical, and never forget that in the endless struggle between truth and manipulation, your consciousness is the battlefield and your awareness is the victory. The Isles are watching, but now you're watching back. Keep your mind free, your will strong, and your truth unshakable. In the fluorescent lit laboratories of American commerce, the most precious thing you can protect is your own authentic human experience. Shop aware, live free, and remember, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and the cost of complacency is everything that makes us human.